taken forever to even get this thing started. I'm glad it as far as the flow and everybody's coming in clear. I know usually Blanche is like his screen's all fuzzy, and I think too with Chuck as well. So I think everybody's coming through clear, so that's a good thing. What's up, folks? So we're live now. I made the decision to get better internet. All this time, I thought that the issue was YouTube or my computer or what have you. I don't typically deal with the bill paying aspect of family life. My wife takes care of everything with the bills and all that. I just provide the income and she disperses it here and there. And I asked her, I said, "Hey, what what's our internet speed?" And she goes, "Oh, we got like 200 megabytes." I said, "200 megabytes? That's why we've been having all these issues." So I called our internet provider and they bumped us up to like 2 terabytes or something like that. So shouldn't have any more issues with lagging or anything like that. But anyway, how have you guys been since the last time we talked?
I'm
Man, I've
good.
been smooth, man. Yeah, we good, man.
Cool,
I've
cool,
been
cool.
good.
Getting by, getting by,
So I wanted to
trying
come
to
on here and
survive
discuss this
in
Colin
Michigan.
Kaepernick thing. Have y'all heard about it?
Oh, ooh, yes, let's talk about it.
Yeah,
This man's
You
a
know, I
fool.
have nothing to say.
Blanche, what's your take on Colin Kaepernick?
I think he's a real stand-up guy. No, no. Being a 49er fan, I used to like Kaepernick, and then until he became woke, and then but as far as him and his I don't know, he's just a puppet, man. I don't really respect him. I remember one time they asked him why he was kneeling, and he said he was kneeling to bring awareness. He wasn't kneeling to fix anything. He wasn't kneeling to what they say dismantle the system. He wasn't kneeling to end oppression. He was kneeling to bring awareness. I'm like, that's the dumbest answer I ever heard in my life. But to me, that's Colin Kaepernick. He's just a puppet, you know, just a puppet.
one
So,
thing,
I'm sorry. Go
one
ahead, Chuck.
one thing too. Blanche, he said, and I watched the show last night. I was there in the beginning. I couldn't stay. I was so tired, man. I had to call it a night. But I watched the rest of it today. And another thing that Colin Kaepernick said, for those who don't remember, when he was asked why he chose to, kneel during the national anthem, he also said, and this was in the lead up to the 2016 election, and he said, and I quote, "I refuse to stand for a flag that represents a country that oppresses African Americans and other people of color." And he pointed to the Democrat nominee and the Republican nominee. Now, he said, an evidence of this racism, he claims, was due to the fact that the Democrat candidate for the presidency is a woman in Hillary Clinton who once referred to black people as super predators. And then you have a man in Trump who is just openly racist. Now, he gave you a quote from Hillary Clinton proving her racism in his opinion.
Right.
And then he said, "Well, we have a guy in Trump who's just a racist." And so, it wasn't simply about this whole police brutality issue. He genuinely believes that the United States has a systemic problem as far as racism is concerned. And then we saw what happened you know, after that, especially when he pulled stunts such as, wearing a t-shirt with Malcolm X and Fidel Castro on it together to an away game in Miami of all places. He knew exactly what he was doing. And then, of course,
Right.
he was asked about it during the post-game press conference by a reporter, I think maybe from the Miami Herald, but I believe the reporter was a Cuban man, and he asked him if he was aware of the atrocities that have been committed or that was committed by Fidel Castro. So, of course, it wasn't just about police brutality. This man is, he's ideologically driven. And I heard a lot of people talking about, I don't know if he's still with this woman, but wasn't he dating like some famous DJ female something
Yeah,
in the music
I think
industry
he's
or
still
whatever?
with her. I think he's still with her,
Yeah,
right?
I think they have
yeah,
a
she was,
child.
Yeah, they have a child.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, and isn't she like a first generation? Isn't she like an Iranian immigrant or something? And a lot of people are saying that she's the one who sort of radicalized him. But I don't know. But yeah, yeah, Colin Kaepernick is he's one despicable, low life. Just yeah, I can't even, man. I can't even. Again, to me, I mean, the man is, I don't even have to be a trained clinician or psychologist to know that this man is really suffering emotionally and psychologically because I think wasn't his mother white and it was his black
yeah,
father that abandoned him. And so he got adopted by a white family. And so here is a man who was in search for the black side of himself that he really never knew. And to him, again, we'll probably get into this whole issue of blackness, but I believe that Colin Kaepernick always grew up believing that he wasn't quite black enough,
Hmm.
and that he always wanted to sort of be, this sort of image of what the media portrays as blackness. He sort of always wanted to get a piece of that
Hmm.
because in his feeble mind, that to him was sort of like a rite of passage. You all, I know, and Blanche, you brought up Charleston White during your show yesterday, and it reminds me of something Charleston White said. And he said, man, he didn't have a relationship with his father, but he said his mother spoiled the crap out of him. He said he never struggled. He never wanted for
right.
anything. He had anything that he ever wanted, but Charleston White wanted to. He said, man, I wanted to be a gangster. I wanted to be a thug. I wanted to go to prison. I wanted to go to jail. Because he said listen to the rappers and doing and all that stuff. He said, man, that was my idea of manhood. He said, man, I wanted to go to prison
Yeah.
because I thought that is what would have made me a man. Same deal with Colin Kaepernick, man. He's a man lost. He's a
Keisha,
man lost.
You just recently posted a video going over the whole Colin Kaepernick thing. Go ahead and sum that up, if you will.
So he has a book coming out. Colin Kaepernick has a book coming out, and I think it's called "Change the Game," if I'm not mistaken. And one of the funny things is he does this interview on CBS, and he talks about how his mother, when he wanted to get cornrows because of Allen Iverson, he wore his blackness, on his sleeve. He was just so upfront with his blackness, and he wanted to be like Allen Iverson. And so he wanted to get some cornrows, and his mother, rightfully so, in my opinion, was like, "You want to get corn? What? Like what is this?" And he found that to be offensive because his mother was and his parents were like, "No, you're going to present yourself properly. We're not doing all this cornrow stuff." And he thought that meant it was an attack on his quote unquote blackness, which I don't even really know what that means, because if your blackness is relegated to cornrows, I mean, like that's really, I mean, a hairstyle. That's what your blackness represents.
Hey, but y'all
Anyway,
started this though, black women.
well,
Y'all started this whole "my hair is my identity" thing. So, what do you have to say for yourself?
um, first of all, no. This started. It is stupid to think that you wearing a certain hairstyle means that you are representing your blackness, because I don't know if y'all have been on vacation to like Mexico or the Bahamas or Jamaica or anywhere. Anybody can go and get their hair corn rolled and braided,
Right.
and I mean anybody can do this. It's not like just for black people, okay? So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
it's just not it that doesn't make you more black. But I do understand why he would think that that would put him more in touch with quote unquote blackness, because if you listen to the interview, he started being radicalized, guess where? In high school. He was being radicalized in high school and becoming an activist on all, quote unquote, the black issues, and the, putting him in touch with his black side, which is a typical communist tactic to go after young people and get them angry about, certain things. But the to me, the most disturbing part of this whole entire thing was that you had parents, whether they be, his father was black, his biological father was black, his a biological mother was white, and they left you. They left you, and you had these parents who opened up their heart and their home and wanted to and loved you, not wanted to love you, but acted on that, loved you, brought you into their home. And today, after all of your success, where, a lot of kids who stay in orphanages and who never find a home, end up in incredibly just destructive, they end up on the streets, they end up on drugs, they end up in all types of situations that you would never wish on any child. He made it out of that. And for him to turn around and say, well, mom and dad, you didn't let me embrace my cornrows, and whatever his idea of blackness is, and so therefore you're kind of racist and it's quote problematic. I when you're growing up, your kids are never going to like every single thing that you do. But the fact that you could turn around and say this to parents who adopted you, they didn't have to. When you have biological kids, you're like, they are given to you by God, and you gotta kind of love these people, these little people that God gives you. They didn't have to, and they chose to, and this is how you treat them. I just found it utterly disrespectful. As a mother, I know she probably wants to go and snatch every hair off of his head and beat the smoke off of him, because it is so disrespectful. Parents, y'all who have children on this, that there are things that you go through that you will never even tell your children that you go through to provide for them or to give them a better life. You don't even share that with your children. The secret tears that you cry. I don't know, as a mother, y'all fathers may not do this, but the tears that you cry when you feel like you didn't do everything right, the overthinking that you do when you feel like,
men aren't supposed to cry.
I
mean, unless you're Steve Harvey or D.L. Hughley.
Okay. Jones. I know mothers go through this, and I'll wrap this up. But it was just, the things that you don't even tell your children that you go through, the sacrifices that you make, that he will probably never even know that his adopted mother has probably done, for him to go and say all these things. It's just such a disrespect and slap in the face. And I have zero respect for him. None.
Yo, Chad.
Go ahead.
Chad, can I say something real quick, if I may? I asked you before about this film, and you said you are familiar with it, so I'm assuming that you've seen it. And that is the film. It's called "The Spook Who Sat by the Door." Mm-hmm. I don't know if Blanche seen it, if Keisha has seen it. So just briefly, it's a movie. It's about a black man. And I have it on VHS somewhere. I don't even have a working VCR anymore. But it's about a black man. He goes and, there was like I think it was like some diversity quotas or something like that. For if anybody listening to this, if you're familiar with the film and I'm getting the plot wrong, I apologize. But the short of it is, a black guy, he goes and gets trained by the United States government. I don't know if he was either a CIA or FBI agent or something. I think they try to play it up like they needed to make some kind of diversity quota or something like that, and they needed to hire a black man, so they hired him. And he knew the entire time that he was simply going to learn the the tools and the tricks that he needed from the United States government. And then he went back and he sort of taught these kind of espionage, guerrilla warfare tactics to the homies in the hood, so they can, start this civil war, this guerrilla war in the United States. And that's how the film ends. The film ends with the country sort of embroiled in flames, right? And there's a scene in the film, and one of the co-conspirators in this plot to instigate this civil war in the United States, one of his top sort of chief lieutenants in this cause was this one guy who was a biracial man, very high yellow guy, right? And out, Chad, like I said, there's one of the most famous scenes in that film where the lead character in the film is trying to test his loyalty. And he's testing his loyalty and questioning his blackness because of his biracial ancestry. Like I said, the dude is like high yellow. And he's poking him, he's prodding him, he's trying to make him angry by trying to tell him he ain't black, and that he's not loyal to the cause. And just this outburst, and again, in one of the most famous scenes in that film, the guy goes, he said, "Man, I was born black, I live black, and I'm gonna die probably because I'm black, because some cracker that knows I'm black better than you, nigga, is probably gonna put a bullet in the back of my head." And then he kind of smiled and he grinned. He said, "Now that's the kind of fire I was looking for. That's what I needed to see, because I wanted to make sure that you was really about what you said you was about," right? Because he was, again, insecure about the color of his skin, because he needed to prove more so than any of the other brothers in the struggle that he was really down, considering the fact that he was mixed race. And so that's the Colin Kaepernick issue, the spook who sat by the door psychology. All right, he doesn't quite know what he doesn't quite know what blackness. He doesn't quite know what it means to be quote unquote black, genuinely and authentically black. He doesn't know what it means, and so he thinks that I need to almost this survivor's guilt in a way, that I need to project this sort of militancy to show, just to prove, not just to people sort of look, but just to prove to myself that I deserve to be in a sense, I guess, sort of a black, to sort of claim my black heritage. I have to do this. I have to do it more so than anybody else, because look how I grew up. I grew up essentially, I was essentially a white kid. I was a white kid. And then here he is, ironically, talking about Allen Iverson's cornrows, saying that to him, that was a symbol of blackness, and he wore it like a suit of armor, right? So here is Colin Kaepernick, a white guy, trying to sort of validate or comment on what he thinks blackness is. And of course, what gives him the authority to speak about what blackness is? He's a white guy. And I guarantee you, that's the worst thing you could probably call Colin Kaepernick. Call him a white boy. I guarantee you, he'll want to fight you.
So when you look at these photos, what do you notice about the men?
I can't see him, Chad.
Well, he ain't smiling.
No.
I can't see him either.
Okay. Well,
I can see him.
I think the audience can see them.
There we go.
Like, what do you notice about these men?
First thing I noticed, they're all in suits. They're not smiling.
I can only see you, Chad.
Well, they don't have cornrows.
They don't have cornrows. That's true.
Is the point that I'm trying to point out. They
don't have cornrows.
I can't see them on the screen, Chad. I'm like watching YouTube at the same time. I can't see it.
But I just displayed photos, old black and white photos, prior to the 1960s of black men, black families. And one of the things that you'll notice is that all the men were in suits, and they didn't have cornrows. Their hair was cut, cropped, short. Some of them even had fades, you know what I'm saying? But nobody had cornrows. And so this idea of growing your hair out into a large afro and then ultimately braiding it, that didn't start until the 1970s. And it started on the back of this kind of say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud kind of movement, this kind of pro-black movement, where in an attempt to rail against America and the West and capitalism, what black people were advised to do was to embrace their African barbarism, to put on African garb and dashikis and I forget what those shirts are called, that are kind of cut down to the chest, and
Like
to
a
start
tunic?
and start naming your children these kind of black sounding names or what have you, and to wear your hair, in an afro. There's this old Marvin Gaye song. I forget the name of the song. I think it's called "What's Going On" or something like that. But at the
Yeah,
end,
because we wear our hair long.
yeah, simply because we wear our hair long,
Yeah.
and so it's this kind of thing where I'm going to be grotesque. I'm going to be flamboyant. I'm going to be out loud with my quote unquote blackness, and to the extent that people recoil away from that, it's because I'm black. You don't like me because I'm black, because I'm embracing the truity of what blackness is. And so it's kind of like this psychological thing that's going on. And I make this analogy all the time. Like, imagine you're at a business meeting. Everybody's in suits or are dressed in casual attire. And you're talking over finances. And all of a sudden, this young lady walks in with thigh-high stripper boots, a thong, a bra where you can, almost see her nipples, frankly. She has on huge gauges and face tattoos and stuff like that. And she sits down at the table and joins the meeting. Of course, everybody will look at her like, okay, you're out of place. You know what I mean? What are you doing here? Did somebody pay you to come here? Or what? Like, what's going on? Now, that lady could stand up and say, oh, y'all are discriminating against me because I'm a woman. And a lot of people, unfortunately, will go along with that narrative. You're discriminating against her because she's a woman. Like, no, I'm not discriminating against her because she's a woman. I'm kind of freaked out at the fact that she's dressed this way in this setting, in this place. And so it's more of the case of how you're presenting yourself than it is in the color of your skin or what's in between your legs. And this is what happened with so-called blackness. Whenever we were told that our color should dictate the kind of music we listen to, the way that we talk, the way that we wear our hair, because we're black, we're supposed to fit this kind of narrative, and we present ourselves this kind of repulsive image to the world, and the world recoils away from that. You can't then say that the world is being racist. You're just being a degenerate. That's really what it boils down to. It's not the world, it's you. And so in this current political and cultural climate in which we now find ourselves, the narrative has been turned to, if people are recoiling away from you or if people reject you, it's not because of something you did, it's the world that did it. The world is the one that needs to change. One of the biggest proponents of this narrative is none other than Hank Rogers, who goes by the name Ibram X. Kendi. He was asked about the fact that some universities are beginning to lower the standards of enrollment for black people. Namely, the SAT scores that they are allowing for black students is lower than that of Asian students and white students. And Hank Rogers thinks this is a good thing. And when asked about it, he said, well, we have to ask ourselves the question, is there something wrong with the test or is there something wrong with the test taker? I think there's something wrong with the test, because these SAT questions are asking or are more related to somebody who grows up in a white experience. If you grow up in a black experience, you can't relate to some of those questions on the SAT test. And so the questions aren't universal. These questions aren't a true kind of universal test of one's knowledge and understanding. These questions are specific to a particular cultural upbringing. And so because of that, the test is a problem, not the test taker. And this is the kind of sophisticated, nonsensical arguments that these people are making to basically say that life needs to be modified if you are a person of quote unquote color. And it's all just utter nonsense. Do any of you have a response to that before I play this clip?
I
Yeah.
I do.
Oh yeah.
I do. Go ahead, Blanche. I wanted to say something, but go ahead, Blanche.
See, I think that, and this is the issue, right? The problem is if someone says a person is acting black or a person is acting white, then they're qualifying that statement with behavior. So, what is acting black? What is acting white? Acting black is going to be things that would require someone to lower requirements to get into school. Acting white would be the standard in which is quote unquote seem to be wrong because it's not a shared experience with everyone. Um, Hank Rogers is crazy, but Colin Kaepernick is funny to me because he's literally a contradiction in his message because corporate America pays Kaepernick. Racist America, corporate America gave him his own ice cream. He has his own shoe deal. He's with
Hello.
Netflix. So like it's funny to me that America is systemically racist, but that same racist system is also making him rich, even post football. So when he made that statement, and I think you or Chuck said it about him being Allen Iverson wearing his badness as a badge of honor. Allen Iverson was known culturally for cornrows, tattoos, and quote unquote being a thug. And to me, that's the image that in Kaepernick's mind was validating for him to be black. It wasn't him in a suit. It wasn't him being a scientist. It wasn't him being an astronaut. It wasn't him being a doctor. It wasn't him being a lawyer or just a hardworking middle class man. The image of blackness for Kaepernick was Allen Iverson. And so to me, that's one of the main problems I have with blackness is that black folks really don't control what blackness is. Because a lot of folks that say they're black don't act like Allen Iverson or Kaepernick. They just live their regular people. So that's all I got to say on that.
Thank you, Angel, for the super chat. Thank you also, Kevin, for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Um,
I wanted to
uh,
chime in. Keisha, you got something? I wanted to chime in on what you said, Chad.
Uh,
well, before I
Uh,
I,
say that, before you go
yeah.
on, Chuck, before y'all go on, so Angel, like thank you for that super chat because that's my first ever super chat. They only just now allowed me to monetize my channel, even though I've been over the threshold for that. So anyway, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And then Kevin said, let's see here. What did Kevin say? Kevin said only a trash can accepts everything. Cap has proven himself as a master grifter. I can't read. I was public school educated, so bear with
you're a
me.
plumber. You can't
I'm a
read.
plumber. I can't read. Right? Uh, he's laughing at black people on his way to the bank. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I can read. I mean, don't like. I'm not retarded, but this print is so small that I can barely even see it. So anyway, I think Chuck was about to say something, and then Keisha, then I'll play the clip.
Yeah, but like you said, America again. To Blanche's point, he's so mainstream, but yet he's just this radical, this man who has been put upon his entire life, and it's just ridiculous because and America has long accepted this kind of radicalism. It's been going on in the United States for a very, very long time. I just recently did a whole thing on the Black Panther Party and how mainstream they were, even back then. But today, of course, the story is told a bit differently. But when I look at Allen Iverson, for example, man, I mean, and Blanche just alluded to it. It wasn't so much that Allen Iverson had the image of a thug. Everybody remembers the bowling alley incident that nearly derailed his entire athletic career. And of course, it wasn't just merely a style thing with Allen Iverson. That style, I mean, because remember his rookie season, he didn't have cornrows and tattoos. Those came year two, year three, year four, and then all of a sudden, Allen Iverson sort of became like the archetype for the whole, hip hop athlete image. But again, it wasn't just an image with Allen Iverson. I mean, he actually, If you look at his upbringing, his background, the relationship he had with his mother, and everything else, I mean, Allen Iverson was somewhat of a troubled guy. And again, the whole bowling alley incident. I mean, that was major national news because Allen Iverson was, if I don't know, I think he may have been an All-American in both football and basketball. So Allen Iverson was a big deal. And of course, he got chance after chance after chance because he was exceptionally talented. Just like Randy Moss. Randy Moss, similar situation. What, he was kicked out of two Division I scholarships he blew. He accepted a scholarship to Florida State, then he ended up at Notre Dame, and then he finally ended up at Marshall because he had behavioral issues. But he kept getting chance after chance after chance because he was supremely talented. Again, Colin Kaepernick, sort of like the Charleston White story that I brought up. Colin Kaepernick felt as though he never really received his rite of passage as a man because he was not a sort of troubled, young man. Although he may have been, fed those radical ideas as far back as high school, but there was no real stories. At least I haven't come across any about Colin Kaepernick having behavioral problems in high school and in college. Blanche, you said something on your show the night before about how black parents didn't even, a black mother or father would tell you the exact same thing about cornrows. It reminded me of that episode of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Remember that episode when Will went back home to Philly for a little while, and then he came back, he had the hair and he had the pager, and it was beef between his aunt and uncle because they wanted him to get rid of his hair and get rid of the pager. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, it's not a black thing. It's not a white thing. Both, a black parent and a white parent would say the exact same thing. But I know, and I'm gonna pass it to Keisha. When I was a kid, I think maybe I'm a little older than Colin Kaepernick, but I remember Crisscross when they came out with their first hit single, probably their only hit single, "Jump." They had the little braids. I think that song came out when I was like 3 years old. I mean, not 3 years old, when I was like in the third grade. But then you fast forward. The following year, around 93 was the year that the Hughes Brothers film Minister Society released. And I remember everybody wanted to have braids because they wanted to look like O-Dog. Because O-Dog, the character portrayed by Lorenz Tate, was the most memorable character. Lorenz Tate, he stole the show. He stole the movie. And everybody remembers all Lorenz Tate's lines. Hey man, I got these cheeseburgers. Everybody remembers all of that. We all remember it. And so we thought Lorenz Tate's O-Dog character, we thought O-Dog was cool. And then fast forward the following year in 1994, that's when Bone Thugs and Harmony released their first hit single, Thuggish Ruggish Bone, and they had big long hair and braid. Mind you, I'm just telling you, this was my experience growing up in the Midwest in Detroit. And Bone Thugs and Harmony was like my favorite rap group, my favorite rap act in general at the time. And I thought, and that was their trademark, as far as their image was concerned. And I wanted to look like Bone Thugs and Harmony. I never, grew braids, but that was the whole thing. You know what I mean? And it's funny because I didn't necessarily equate it with blackness, quote unquote. You know what I'm saying? But again, it's not about blackness. No. I'm saying like,
okay.
I tried. My hair. My hair didn't grow like that. But I wanted to look like Busy Bone and Crazy and Lazy Bone. I wanted big, long, big, crazy looking hair.
I wonder. You're in Detroit, right?
Yeah.
I wonder what the ratio of black men is. How many black men out of 5 in Detroit have cornrows or had cornrows over the course of the early 2000s? So from 2000 to 2010, was it like 3 and 5,
everybody.
4 and 5?
Man, if you shoot out of 5, I'll probably say maybe 3 out of 5. Allen Iverson. He was a cultural icon. He was an image icon. But again, that's when I was kind of like going into early adulthood. But my whole point in bringing up the whole thing with the braids and the hair and whatnot is to your point, Chad, that when you look at O-Dog and Minister Society, and you look at Bone Thugs and Harmony, I wasn't looking at it like this was some black thing. What I'm saying? I thought O-Dog was cool because I thought being a gangster and being I thought it was cool. You know what I mean? And so I wanted to, we wanted to look like O-Dog, and drive our Mustang 5.0s like Kane did in the movie Menace to Society.
Did you ever have cornrows, Bryant?
Yeah, you know I had cornrows. Come on. Y'all know I went through every stereotype. Come on, man. I did it all.
Hey, you
Come on.
got a picture?
Oh yeah, I got pictures. Yeah,
Yeah, let's see that.
yeah, I got pictures.
Yeah, I want to see that. I never had cornrows. I thought they were gay. My brother had them though.
I never had cornrows, but I will say it's the thuggish, ruggish bone. Yo,
Yeah,
that
man.
was ever. I grew up in Connecticut. Okay, so I
Connecticut.
mean, I was in a predominantly white high school, and that everybody was listening to this. Like it was
Yeah.
beyond a
Yes.
black thing. But I
Yep.
think what I think because when we were talking before about the him wanting to prove himself and basically his struggle with identity, I just have a question like why do black people or biracial people or what people in general, why do they want to prove, why does it consist of being more black? To, nobody ever says I want to prove my whiteness. You know what I mean? Like nobody is ever talking about like I want to prove my whiteness. They want to be more black.
Because black,
And
quote
Yeah.
unquote, black culture is
It's
vicious.
virtue. Yeah, yeah. They equate blackness with virtue.
Yeah, it's
but
like
That's
the
why.
but many of the things that they do is often bad. Like I knew guys that I went to high school with who grew up, they're and even in college, I went to a predominantly black college. My high school was predominantly white, and the black kids that grew up extremely privileged. I'm talking about many mansions, both parents in the home. They had a really good life by all intents and purposes, and they literally sought out thuggery. They sought it out. And one of those guys that I knew went to prison for robbing somebody. I'm telling you, these were
So,
some of the most privileged black guys, even the white guys. Even like I went to school with a lot of like Italian white guys. I mean, I can't tell you all of the like, coming up, hey, yo, Keish. I mean, these are like there is no hood, like there is nothing. Your parents are in the home, they have good jobs, you're not struggling, but they all wanted a piece of this, black, what they perceived as black culture. They really did. They wore their pants a certain way. They wanted to be down. I want to be down.
Keisha
They
has a
really
song for everything. Listen.
right.
Keisha has
And
a
the
song for
other thing
everything.
that I will say, I'm a singer. Listen, I'm an artist. I will always be an artist. But the other thing is, um, I feel like today, black people who are on this, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blackity black, they are doing exactly what real racists used to do, distinguishing black people because of their skin color. Like you're saying, I am set apart. Somehow I'm different because I happen to have more melanin. Somehow that makes me a different kind of human being. And somehow, my lived experience is different because I happen to have more melanin. And that is critical race theory.
Mm-hmm.
Because critical race theory says that you have to listen to every individual's lived experience or their individual story as a minority or as a marginalized person for their story to count.
Yeah.
This is an outworking of critical race theory. Anyway, I just don't understand the whole thing. Like, why do you have to be? Because I grew up in my mother did not tolerate. My parents did not tolerate bad grammar. So when I would speak, like, especially if I was in like a group of like hood black people or urban black people, like the room would go quiet because it was like, oh, where's she from? Like, but I didn't grow up. I grew up poor. But my mother was a stickler for good grammar.
Yeah.
Period. We were not able to speak bad English, and people thought I would get hit with the, oh, you want to be white, or
You
oh,
want to be
you
white
want to
so
be
bad.
you ain't black and right.
Right,
You
right.
ain't black and right. You know what I mean? And it's like it's just a very weird thing that being that blackness is always it's always a negative
Well,
connotation.
the psychology of it is they're not doing anything different, and by they I mean the peddlers of this black narrative, this black identity. They're not doing anything different than what the rebel culture did in the 60s with Mad Magazine and all these other, you know, uh, films and television and music and so on. What they figured out, and I talk about this all the time because Yuri Bezmenov called it ideological subversion. And so what they were able to figure out is if you can, in a sense, get the youth to rebel against what the adult society was saying was moral, just, right, decent, you can get them to rebel against that, then you can, in a sense, get your hooks into the youth and drive them and to whatever trajectory you wish to drive them. And so if you read the early Mad Magazine publication, the articles, they deliberately and strategically poked fun at the adult society and the adult society's values. And the whole idea is if you're a young person reading Mad Magazine, you will begin to identify more with what you're reading in this magazine than what you see firsthand with your parents and with your grandparents. And so this, like what Hollywood did is they took that whole thing and they ran with it in pop culture, and specifically so-called black culture. And so you got in the 1970s, they were putting forth an identity of this is what blackness is. If you look at a lot of these blaxploitation films, you see enmity between blacks and whites. Anytime a white person showed up in the film, he was the man. He was somebody to poke fun at, fun of. Not only him because of his skin color, but also because of his quote unquote values. Never mind the fact that these black folks, fathers and grandfathers, shared the same values. It wasn't as much about color as much as it was about decency and indecency. And so what they did was they ascribed that which was decent to white, and that which is indecent, barbaric, frivolous, indifferent, they tied that to black. And so that's what blackness is. And so the latter half of the 20th century, part and parcel, or part of the latter half of the 20th century is to establish and to imprint in the minds of everyone, black, white, whatever, what blackness is. And to the extent that you don't act in that way, you are not acting black. And so it becomes this kind of vicious thing. I used that word vicious earlier. And it's also a rebellious thing. Rebellion and blackness are one and the same. And so rebellion is cool.
People are lured to that?
Yeah. That's the psychology of it. Rebellion is cool to the young person.
Yep.
If you grow up in suburbia, you have mom who, is a soccer mom. You have dad who works and he plays golf and he likes to hang out with the guys and he comes home and he likes to wash his car and mow his yard. That guy is a square to the mind of a young person. White, black, doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. However, if they turn on their TV and they see a hip hop music video, and not only that, see, they're so slick with it. Not only do you have music and stuff that goes along with it, but you also have fashion too. To make a fashion statement, to wear certain shoes, to have certain swagger. Black people are cool in the mind of the young white person and in the mind of the young black person. And so, again, you learn to identify with that which is cool, that which is rebellious, that which is shaking their fists against the system. This is why Rage Against the Machine. Rage Against the Machine is not a black band. It's a white band of communists who are middle-aged now. I think they're in their 40s. And they're still raging against the machine. They're still advocating for communism. They're still rebelling against the so-called system. Yeah. And you have these angry atheist communists who are making music that's resonating with young folks who are growing up in households where all of their needs are met. They're being educated. They're being fed. They don't have to want for anything. But they are associating with this music, Eminem, the same way. Eminem's music, which is rebellious, which is angry, and so the reason why I bring up Rage Against the Machine, the reason why I bring up Eminem, two entities that are not black is because, again, my point is to say that it's a matter of decency versus indecency. Color doesn't matter. Take color out of the equation. The only reason that why color matters, and the only reason it's even a topic, is because they've managed to conflate, to equate, to make you think of blackness in the same vein as you think of this kind of degeneracy and decency. But even though degeneracy and decency are negative words, you don't think about them as being negative when you think of black folks. You think of it as being cool and necessary, and a kind of byproduct of slavery and Jim Crow. And so that's the psychology of it. And sorry for the long-windedness of it, but again, it's to the extent that you have mixed race people who try so hard to be black, again, they are attracted to the rebellious kind of angst of it, really, more so than they are like, oh, that's more decent and that's more, you know what I mean? That I can, you know, I mean, you don't have white people who are vying for and playing and participating in this kind of tug of war for the identity of mixed race people. It's like, no, you can be whatever you want to be. I don't care. You know, I mean, it's your life. You live it how you want to. So that's the so-called white side of the equation. Meanwhile, you have black folks saying like, no, if you want to be black, if you want to be one of us, if you want to be in a club, you got to look this way. You got to dress this way. You got to talk this way. And so you have black folks who are more engaged in that tug of war than do white folks. And so of course you're going to go along. It's a kind of squeaky wheel gets the grease kind of scenario. I'm going to go along with the people who are being the loudest and the more consistent as to what black identity is, because there's nobody out there saying that this is white identity. You know what I mean? The only people who are saying that this is white identity is Hank Rogers and the Smithsonian, apparently.
And a lot of white parents will be like, yeah, keep that crap up and you will be cut off. No allowance for you. No inheritance.
Well, you know, it's almost funny. You know, Allen Iverson is famous for his speech about this is practice.
Practice.
And that's funny because if you talk to the average black person, they don't think what he said was wrong. Like the average black person thinks what he said was right. And a part of being black is having the bar lowered because you're going to end up excusing bad behavior. So Allen Iverson was not going to practice, but you make up the bulk of the offense. So if you're not on the court practicing, what are they practicing? Setting picks and getting rebounds? Like, what are they doing? So if you don't practice with the team, you're going to mess the team up. But nobody even thought about that. The fact that he was Allen Iverson and he's black, he's being picked on. The league doesn't like his image. He's a rebel. So already he's given a pass for bad behavior. Then I heard him say, y'all are blaming me for the team losing like it's my fault. Think about this. The leader of a team says, y'all are blaming me like it's my fault. But again, he don't have to be accountable because this is a part of black culture. And black culture says that Allen Iverson was already a victim. They even tried to make what happened to him in that bowling alley racist. He went to jail for that. This dude started a literal brawl in the bowling alley where folks were throwing bowling balls. So he like forfeited his senior year in high school. He was in jail for like 6 months. But what should have given him a black eye gave him a strike. Allen Iverson went to jail. So now he can go and play up to that image. He can be the bad boy. He can be the thug. He can be all this stuff, and he'll get a pass for it. But I mean, what you're saying is right, Chad, because it's almost like black people get to wear designer clothes automatically. Like, you know, everybody else wants to be able to buy the Gucci, the Fendi, and the Louis, but to be cool, and black folks already got it. So just by being black, they automatically give you, okay, this person must be strong because they went through the struggle. This person must be street smart. This person must be tough. This person, like, you get all this stuff for being black, and it could all be false.
Yeah.
I like the example of the show Family Matters, where you had Eddie Winslow and Steve Urkel.
Right.
The show made you pick. Are you going to pick Eddie Winslow, the kid that can barely read but he can sing and play basketball, or are you going to pick the child prodigy genius, Steve Urkel? Now Eddie Winslow gets all the girls. He's cool. He dresses good. Everything. Steve Urkel don't get any chicks. He's laughed at. He's ridiculed and scorned, but he's a genius. This is what black culture is, though. They'll make you pick. Ben Carson, no. George Floyd, yes. That's just how it goes.
Right. And the reason, and those are great points. Like, the reason I brought up Rage Against the Machine is because Rage Against the Machine does the same kinds of things that Public Enemy were doing in terms of like the politics that they're talking about in their music and at their concerts.
Yeah.
The difference is that Rage Against the Machine is not talking about their politics being one and the same with their whiteness, whereas Public Enemy is talking about their politics being one and the same with their blackness. And so again, when it comes to the black push for communism and the black push for socialism and the black push for the Democrat cause, and I don't get caught up in the Democrat Republican nonsense, but the reason, like, when black folks do it, they tie it to the color of their skin. When it comes to white artists who do the same exact thing, they don't tie it to, being white. You know what I mean? They just tie it to
It's an idea.
Yeah, an idea and a just cause and so on and so forth. And so again, when you look at the numbers in terms of blacks who vote a certain way versus, whites who vote a certain way, so on and so forth, there's a lot of nuance to that. And I think a lot of people get it misconstrued and misunderstood. And it gets to the point where people think that you are genetically predisposed to, if you're black, to be a degenerate. A lot of Republicans believe this. And I hate to say it, but, I posted a video and it was a 17-second clip. And in this clip, I said something to the effect of, I'm looking at a photo album or what have you, and it's a bunch of black people prior to the 1960s. They're all dressed to the nines. They all look great. They all look decent. And I said, when you look at these photos, I said something to the effect of, like, it's not about whiteness and blackness. It's about decency and indecency. When I look at these photos of black folks, I see decency. When I look at how the media portrays black people, I see indecency. So I posted that video, and there were a lot of people who were commenting, like, so is it the media doing this to black folks? Black people, like, what were they saying? They said something to the effect of, like, oh, you're trying to blame the media for your own problems. And it's like you're not even worth responding to, because two things can be true at once. Yes, the media is complicit in putting forth this image. They know full well what they're doing. At the same time, nobody put a gun to Lizzo's head. Nobody put a gun to Tyler Perry's head. Nobody put a gun to, any of these black people who are being degenerates in front of cameras to push a narrative and to push an identity and an ideology to make money. Yes, they are responsible for their own actions. And to the extent that you as a consumer watch these videos and you identify more with that than with what you see in your own family photo albums, then yes, you are responsible for your own actions. But let's not pretend that the media isn't also complicit in putting forth this narrative. Blaxploitation isn't a word that just appeared out of thin air. No, this was a deliberate agenda by Hollywood to put forth this identity and put forth this image and this messaging. They knew what they were doing. And so I don't know, like, for me, it's so frustrating that people are two-dimensional in the way that they look at things and think about things, to where if I'm not talking about the Democrats are your enemy and it's the Democrats and the Democrats, if I'm not talking about that, then I'm not worth listening to. To the extent that I take the audience deeper and dare to pull back the layers and look at how the ruse is being played on everyone. Oh, no, miss me with that. It's about the Democrats. Make it about the Democrats. And not only that, but again, thinking that you're genetically predisposed to be a certain kind of way if you're white versus if you're black. There's people who genuinely believe this. I don't get caught up in this. I don't lose sleep over the fact that there are white folks who think that black people are genetically predisposed to be degenerate. I don't lose sleep over that. But at the same time, the reason why a lot of people believe that, again, is because they've fallen for the narrative put forth by the Marxist types. because to the extent that you can dehumanize people, and you can get people to act irrationally, you can then use the chaos that ensues from that for political purposes. It's they love when some white guy goes into a church and shoots up black folks, because it gives them the fodder they need, A, to go after people's guns, and B, to say, see, there is a racist problem. There is a problem of racism in America. So they want for these kind of things to happen, and for that reason, they're going to continue to put forth these identities, put forth these narratives, and cause the kind of chaos and confusion that has taken place over the last 50, 60 years. I hope all that made sense, but
No,
Yes.
perfect sense.
Yes.
Somebody just wanted to say, for the sake of correctness, somebody in the chat said that only one member of Rage Against the Machine is actually white. I was curious because
oh
I'm
yeah,
not a
Hispanic.
huge not a huge fan. And I just put up a photograph of him. You got it looks like one guy is probably looks like he probably has two white parents, and the other
Hmm.
three, one guy looks like he's probably multiracial, and then you got a Hispanic looking guy and another guy who looks like he could be mixed. But anyway, but your point still stands, Chad. Everything you said was spot on. I just thought I'd bring that up. But yeah, and like I said, I'm not familiar with their music or anything like that. But I'm looking, I can see their logo with the red star and everything. So yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I find it
A lot of emotional responses to this. Teddy, I hear you.
uh-oh. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Yeah, I find it interesting that people want to honestly, I sum it all up as you can tell when people have been public school educated, and that is the vast majority of our country. Republican, Democrat, left, right, conservative, liberal, whatever. Most of them have been public school educated, and the education system has not taught people how to think. It is literally by the grace of God that I got out of that mindset. And I think for many of us, it is by the grace of God that we were able to come out of these hypnotic indoctrination, brainwashing scenarios, because most of us have not been able to critically think, have not been taught to critically think, and we are two-dimensional thinking. And I mean, you can ask someone will come up to you and say, let's just say you're like, okay, well, what do you think about abortion or something like that? And they will literally respond to you like, oh, Trump is crazy. And you're like, when I didn't even ask you about that. Like, I was literally just asking you about, what do you think about abortion? And, people, they cannot, they can't make logical sense. They don't have logical progressions in conversations. It's like you're talking to somebody that's not really coherent. I mean, they're irrational. It's complete irrationality, and I've never seen anything like this before in my life. People not being able to think and follow a conversation, have a logical progression in converse. I've never seen anything like it. I am so thankful to have been able to pull my children out, because I'm watching my children learn how to think.
Mm.
And it is beautiful. And they're going to pass that on to their children. And I'm bringing my children are coming back to who their father and I have wanted them to be. And it is it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, we need to bring back the model of the traditional woman, because these modern women aren't cutting it. Do y'all remember this?
There's going to be a lot of emotional responses to this. Teddy, I hear you saying basically, if you were in that locker room today, you kind of just put your head down and you think of him as the leader in terms of the decision maker, but not necessarily a leader you respect. I'm curious from your perspective, Randy, if you were in that locker room today, would you be able to play for him?
To speaking of Teddy's point, basically you hear us talk about we got a work to do, we got a job to do, and that's to provide for our families. And Teddy hit it right on the head of just putting your head down and going playing football. You know, I speak about the game of football. I fell in love with the game of football, Sam, at 6 years old. And I get emotional talking about it because of situations like this. My civil rights were taken, were kind of messed with in high school over the color of my skin. And now being able to play 14 years in the National Football League, to have something like this of a leader. We talk about leadership. We give guys these big contracts because they want to be able to lead 70 men, coaches, equipment staff, and managers to the number one goal, and that's to win the championship. And for us to be moving back and not forward in 21st century, like I said, man, National Football League, this hurts me. The clock is ticking, man. I'm sorry.
No.
I can play for you, but I'd rather not. Okay? I'd rather not do it, but if I have to do it, I will. And it's just because I have other people that I have to provide for, right? But I'd rather not do it.
Yeah.
But we've done it before in different situations. We are all mentally tough people in that locker room, but it's something you'd rather not do.
Yeah, so this is what I think about. It's like Randy's sitting up here feeling this way from a distance. I can't imagine a guy in that locker room today trying to play a football game feeling that way.
With a heavy heart.
How? I don't
It
know.
hurts.
I don't know how. What? Max, Matt, or Rex, I would love to hear your perspective. What should the NFL do right now? You see this response, and you guarantee there's a version of this response in that locker room. What should they do? How do you make this right? How does John Gruden make this right at this point? Or is it a lost cause?
I'm at a loss for solutions, but I think the answer to that question probably comes from somewhere inside that locker room in that Las Vegas.
Are they still following him? I mean, that's a big question. You have the slogan of Al Davis talking about, you know, just win, baby. Today in Las Vegas, the slogan is must win.
Okay, that's enough. That's enough of that nonsense.
Oh my gosh.
Man, did you catch Ryan Clark? Did you catch the worst was Kirk Herbstreit? Did you all catch Kirk Herbstreit when he broke down crying on ESPN? Oh, that was god awful. And a man who, I was a huge football fan. I grew up, played football, whole nine, college, high school, whatever. And I modeled my game after him. We played the same position. I was a huge Champ Bailey fan. And I don't know, just in y'all spare time, you may be able to YouTube it. Just pull up Champ Bailey's Hall of Fame speech. Champ Bailey's Hall of Fame speech. I don't know if you heard it, Blanche. Some of the worst, just man, woke social justice nonsense. I lost all respect for Champ Bailey when I heard that, man.
Not Champ Bailey. I like Champ. Oh no.
That was my boy. I loved this game, and that was my idol growing up. Him and Charles Woodson. But I'm telling you, bruh, go. It's probably cataloged on YouTube somewhere. Just go listen to Champ Bailey. You mess around and do a whole show on it. And that was like what, 4-5 years ago. Champ got inducted. Yeah.
No.
I'm about to
Well,
see if
I was
it's
a
on.
cheerleader, and I never saw anything like that. Like, first of all, the white liberal woman, terrible. Like, just absolutely terrible. And, she's like egging the whole thing on. And doesn't he cry? Like, doesn't he go on to cry at some point?
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
NFL, this hurts me.
Yeah. It was just like, these guys are all like manly and like big and buff, and then when they go on there and they're like, I really don't want to play here, but you really don't like making all that money for your family and your families and your generational wealth that you're creating. It's just a bunch of nonsense. Like, I don't even want to hear that. I don't want to see any man getting up there talking about doing their job and then hating it because white people. It's no, thank you. He's a Colin Kaepernick.
Yeah, but what caught my ear is when he said, when I was in college, my civil rights were taken from me because of the color of my skin. Like, come on now.
That's not what happened.
It was not because of the color of your skin. It's because you were being a thug.
Yeah,
you were being a thug. Yeah. I mean, like be honest. Be honest. It's behind you. You did your due diligence in terms of taking your punishment for what you did. Just be honest about what happened. For you to make it about the color of your skin and not about the actions that you've conducted is completely dishonest, and it makes me lose all respect for you as a man. Real men take responsibility for their actions.
That's right.
Real men aren't all of 50 years old and saying that something that they did was because of the color of their skin. Like, come on now. It's madness is what it is.
That's a good deal.
Man.
He said,
Where are the men? Okay, listen. As the single, look, I am intentionally trying to date. I'm trying to find a husband. Everybody, I think, is married. Look, what's going on with the men? Where the real men at? Because your girl is struggling out here.
No, but it's y'all's fault though. It's y'all's fault. It's women's fault.
Y'all did this. Y'all did this.
This is pathetic. What is going to happen to the family? What is going to happen to the family if you got these are football players. They take like they're like supposed to be some of the toughest guys.
Soft.
They're supposed like
Soft.
they are soft. And
No, so-
how are you on here crying about like, oh, white people, oh my God, I don't even know. You're like a freaking multi-millionaire. Like you can literally create any life you want for you and your family. And this is what you're doing. It is disgusting. It is such a turnoff. Like, I don't know any woman that wants to walk into a room and like who wants to stick with that? Like no.
But here's the thing though.
Stick by my side, Keisha. Don't leave me.
Like what are we gonna do when the killer shows up at the door? You know, like I'm gonna need you to get the AR, and you're like crying. Like what is going on?
He gonna put on his Black Lives Matter T-shirt. And
He's gonna put a black square in his bio.
Hey, Chad. Somebody had mentioned in the chat. Somebody was talking about the upbringing, and they said that they pretty much grew up like the Huxtables, which kind of made me think just about the Huxtables and just the whole Cosby Show thing, because it kind of relates to what we're talking about. Just to kind of bring it back on a serious note a little bit, because I just wanted to throw this in there before we move on. Of course, we look at the Cosby Show and it's looked at as like, this seminal moment in pop culture history. In the 80s, you had this, I won't say black sitcom, but a sitcom with a predominantly black cast. It was the number one sitcom in prime time. It was just a big deal. And, of course, this was the 1980s. And so, I mean, you had, Bill Cosby, you had the Cosby Show, and then you had, Michael Jordan becoming the most popular athlete in the world, and you had Oprah on TV, and it was just this great. And then, Whitney Houston and whatnot. And, a lot of people, again, today we look back on that, and it's like this great time to sort of celebrate all this black success. But that wasn't how the activist left viewed the Cosby Show at the time. They viewed the Cosby Show as this fake, phony depiction of black life. Because remember, you talk about the 70s, you had, Sanford and Son, you had Good Times, what have you. And then fast forward to 1980s here, you had an image of, black success and wealth and upward mobility, and a lawyer and a doctor, and they were married, they had their children. And so, a lot of the activist left was saying that this is giving white America a pass, because this is what America, by the wider society, the general population, this is what they're going to think black life is, and it's a lie. So the question became, this is what they were saying. So the question became, is the Cosby Show actually helpful or harmful to the black image? Is it helpful or harmful to blacks in America? I mean, you fast forward, when I was in undergrad, when I was a freshman and sophomore in college in the early 2000s, I remember specifically having debates in an English class about the Cosby Show, and about, again, was the Cosby Show good for blacks or was it bad for blacks? But a lot of blacks back then didn't like the Cosby Show. They didn't like Whitney Houston. Of course, they tried to sort of famously sort of bar her. I believe it was from the 1988 Soul Train Awards. I think they actually booed her when she came out on stage, and they would call her Whitey Hutton, is what they Whitey Hutton. Whitey Houston. They used to call her Whitey Houston because they said that Whitney Houston was too white, because she had more of a clean kind of a pop star image. She didn't have that soul, that R&B kind of a thing. She was a huge crossover star at the time. But then again, it also reminds me of when Bill Cosby got into his fiasco with his rape allegations and whatnot, and all of his commercials and the pudding pops and all of that stuff was getting pulled down. And then that's when they began to air the Cosby Show on a channel called TV1. I don't know if you all have TV1, your local areas where you're from, but TV1 is just this quote unquote all black network, sort of like a BET, where they show nothing but, black programming. And it wasn't until, America began to sink its fangs into Bill Cosby to try to take down this successful black man, that all of a sudden Bill Cosby became a sympathetic figure to the black community. And then we all had to kind of wrap our arms around Bill Cosby. And that's when you start to see the Cosby Show began to re-air all over again on TV1 when it hadn't been on TV1 before. Because again, the Cosby Show was bad. And then, the Cosby Show didn't deal with racial issues, and it didn't, all this other craziness. And just as an aside, if you look at the Cosby Show brownstone, just ironically, or maybe it wasn't so much of a coincidence, that the Cosby home, I don't know what they call it when they show the house that's supposed to be like, from the outside, and then you go on set to the inside. But the show footage of the house from the outside was the actual home that a family of communists in Brooklyn grew up in, the infamous Bodin family. I believe that was the home of Kathy Bodin. And,
Wow.
if you don't know who Kathy Bodin is, then, look into that. But that was her child. That was Kathy Bodin's. Kathy Bodin was a member of the Weather Underground. That was her childhood home in the Cosby Show.
The brownstone?
Yes, sir.
In Brooklyn Heights. That's what it was.
Yep, that was the childhood home of Kathy Bodin. She was the member of the Weather Underground who killed 3 police officers while trying to rob an armored truck. And I'm trying to remember what they claimed, that what was it? That robbery was meant to fund something that was meant to help black people, but all 3 members of the Weather Underground who planned that heist, they were all white. But all of the Weather Underground members were white, if I'm not mistaken. But
There's a documentary that I want to show you, Chuck, at some point. It's
okay.
It was done by Bill Cosby in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, and it's talking about blackness in Hollywood, and it's very cringy. But he was also part of this whole this whole black identity kind of narrative as well. So I mean, I know the Cosby Show was a break from that. You know what I mean? It was a breakaway from that. But in his early career, Bill Cosby was right in line with a bunch of these.
Oh yeah. He was. I was just saying that, but you're right. I was just saying that just as an aside. Whenever you get again, Chad, like you said, a break from the norm, the Cosby Show, pretty much what I was saying in my long-winded way is that, the Cosby Show, they thought at the time that it wasn't black enough. They thought the Cosby Show said it wasn't black enough.
Yeah, you're right.
But one thing about the Cosby Show is the Cosby Show was the #1 show in America, right? Prime time. And it was a show, #1 in America, that centered around a black family. And black folks rejected it. Think about that. Black people had a show that was #1 in America. The dad was a doctor. The mother was a lawyer. All the children were good. The grandparents were like, it was a wonderful show, and black people rejected it. So just think about how crazy that is for black folks to complain about anything when you literally have the entire, even Kevin said in the chat that Bill Cosby was called America's dad.
Yep, he sure was.
America's dad was black. So you got to think about what black people really want. It wasn't positivity. It wasn't hope. It wasn't your children going off to college and being successful. It wasn't the mom being a lawyer and being bilingual. Think about it. Claire was bilingual, and she was a lawyer. Like Bill Cosby, like. But again, my point is, black folks rejected. They rejected it.
But here's the thing about that though, because you're absolutely right, and I hate to keep beating this dead horse, but about Martin Luther King. But the thing is like, you know, whenever you look at the fact that black folks today, since Martin Luther King, like they get their marching orders from a certain subsect, right, of the intelligentsia. And so to the extent that you have somebody like a Bill Cosby, you know, circa early or late 80s, the Cosby Show, or to the extent that you have someone like a Herman Cain, someone like even Kanye West, whenever he was speaking out against a lot of stuff that is going on in Hollywood, like to the extent that you have these things going on, to your point, Blanche, black people reject it because they're told how to think by a certain subsect of the intelligentsia. Whenever Donald Trump, before he ran for president, you know, he was embraced by the so-called hip-hop community or the black culture. And it wasn't until he ran for president that all of a sudden a switch flipped, and now we hate Donald Trump. Now he's a racist. Now he's this. Now he's that. Again, you have black folks who don't make up their own mind on how they feel about a certain thing, about what they will or will not accept, until the media begins to, you know, lock arms with each other, push a narrative, and then black people take that narrative wholesale. You might remember when it came to the snake bite, as you so eloquently put it, Blanche. In the early stages, the early rolling out of the Peter pandemic, as you say, Chuck, or Blanche, black folks were skeptical. They rejected the idea, the notion of getting jabbed. They rejected the notion, the idea of wearing a mask. And it wasn't until the media went into full swing propaganda mode that all of a sudden you start seeing black folks with their mouths covered with a mask. And you still see that to this very day.
Yes.
Like I live in a predominantly black town here in Texas, and I go to the grocery store and you still see people with a big old mask on their face where all you can see is their eyes. And and then too, like getting the jab left and right. It wasn't like that early on until the propaganda kicked in. And so why is it that black folks are so susceptible to propaganda? I would venture to say that, again, MLK had a lot to do with it. And it's not entirely his fault per se, because you saw the so-called Negro Project that predates MLK, where they were giving black folks the syphilis vaccines, when in reality they were doing something a little bit more nefarious than giving them syphilis vaccines. They were experimenting on them. But again, they were able to get into the church through the pastor. And so MLK, he was kind of, he was stage 4, 5, or 6 in the whole agenda to really push this kind of narrative or agenda in the black community by way of the church. And so once you get into the church, which at one point in America, and black America, was a central hub of community, of information, of, you know, whatever, networking. Once you get into the church, you demoralize the pastors. The pastors go along with the narrative. They preach it and disseminate it to their congregants. People will begin to leave the church because they're no longer being spiritually fed and spiritually edified, and they're hearing a message that's watered down, that's not the gospel. And so black people began to go to church less and less and less. And to the extent that you need some kind of moral leader, some kind of moral compass, people began to get that information from so-called civil rights leaders, civil rights activists like Jesse Jackson, like Al Sharpton, who are carrying the water and doing a lot of the legwork for that certain subsect of the intelligentsia who insist on keeping people under control, not just black folks, but people in general. It just so happens that you have these so-called black leaders who are able to keep the black population in control. And then you have other people who are doing the same thing to every other aspect of society. This isn't just a black thing. This is literally a agenda to keep everybody in control. And whatever your flavor is, whatever your identity is, you can rest assured that there's somebody who has the purpose of peddling information to that sector of society so as to keep them under control. You saw it with the so-called Stop Asian Hate movement. If you look at the Stop Asian Hate movement and you pull back the layers, what you'll find is it's a Marxist agenda to insulate and to galvanize Asian people in America for a political purpose and a political cause. They're trying to do with Asians the same thing that they did with the blacks. You see it with the LGBT movement. You see this with the black and brown movement. You see this with the young people movement, with colleges and high schools. You see it in our education system. And so what they did with black people successfully, they aim to do throughout the entirety of the country, and pushing this kind of agenda and pushing this kind of narrative. And so, yes, when it comes to black people today, a lot of us, unfortunately, do not think for ourselves. We do not apply reasoning and discernment and wisdom when it comes to making our own decisions. Instead, we defer to what the media says and who the media says is our heroes and what the textbooks say, we should go along with. And we don't read the textbooks, but we go off of somebody else's interpretation of the textbooks, if that makes sense. So
I find that many times it's more so when it comes into political conversations, because I don't know, like for me, I didn't grow up hearing that the Cosby Show is a bad show. I did hear a little bit about the Whitney Houston thing, but that wasn't that wasn't most people. I grew up singing. I grew up around a bunch of singers. My mother sings. My whole family is somehow, tied to music. That wasn't like a thing that I heard, but I remember hearing some people say that. And also like The Color Purple. I remember there being like a big hubbub about like how The Color Purple depicted black men and it being like a terrible show. Like we used to laugh about The Color Purple, like different parts of the movie. But not until I got older and I went and rewatched it, I was like, oh my God, this is a terrible movie. Like, why was this even funny? But I just don't remember. What I see is that most of the time, it seems like you can have these conversations when they're outside of politics. The moment you bring these things into politics and it becomes like the black, white, like if you just say to someone, like, do you want the kid who barely does any work in class or the person who barely does any work at work to get credit for the work that you're doing? People will be like, oh my God, no. And I want my kid to get exactly what they deserve. Like I want my kid to work hard. Like I want my children to be all that they can be. I don't want my children like when you talk to people kind of one-on-one, it's different than what it is when you're bringing into a political conversation and you're talking about things as a whole. It's almost like people go into, it's like, well, I heard Roland Martin say this recently. He was on a podcast and he was like, I grew up with two parents and I grew up with, what I need, but I'm not, what was the word? He said, I'm not, basically, I'm not arrogant enough, insensitive enough to think that just because I grew up having these things, that somebody else doesn't have these things. And so I'm not going to push them to be all that they can be and push them to do better because, that would be a little bit too arrogant. It's like people assume that just because it was good for me, they don't understand that these are universal laws and principles that if applied, they work for everybody. It's like they compartmentalize these ideas and it's like, oh, well, if it's political, then you have to be over here. And if it's a black white thing, then you have to be on this side. It seems like it's not like people can understand these things in certain contexts, but then in other contexts, it's like you bring it into one thing and it's like, oh, now they're in the hypnotic brainwashing. It's very weird because I grew up, my whole family pretty much are like staunch leftists. You know, my family right now today sits on 26 acres of land. And my mom, I'm not trying to throw my mom under the bus, but she did say, she's like, I think socialism is good. And I'm like, oh, really? So your 26 acres that was aired down to you from our family who were former slaves, who worked their way out of this thing, you want to share that with people who have no stake in it, who their blood, sweat, and tears have never contributed to that? And then she was like, we've never had that socialist conversation again. But I'm just saying, it's like, people buy into these ideas that in certain contexts, they're like, yeah, that's good. And then in others, they're like, no, I don't rock with that. So I don't know. It's strange.
I don't know if they may not quite know what socialism means. A lot of people use a derogatory term, like Chad just said. I just said it in a recent IG live. I said, man, a lot of folks don't realize that the term capitalism, like the term imperialism, and these other words are just, communist superlatives. These are inventions. Like I say, I don't even like using the term capitalism anymore. Call it the free market system, call it whatever you like. But I simply said in a recent IG live that capitalism, it just is what it is. It's just But yeah, that's a communist slander. But I don't know. Maybe Miles doesn't quite know what socialism really means. I pulled up something too, Keisha, because you made your remark not really being around people who kind of had a negative attitude about Whitney Houston, and I know that you weren't saying that to like try and say that you didn't believe what I was saying, but I just wanted to, just for the audience, because I literally just wanted to pull something up real quick, and the first website that popped up when I did my search was the National Museum of African American History and Culture from the Smithsonian. And they have an article about Whitney Houston, and the opening sentence reads, Soul Train founder Don Cornelius launched the Soul Train Music Awards in 1987 to recognize achievements in Black music. At the 1988 award ceremony, some audience members booed Whitney Houston, apparently questioning her authenticity, believing her musical talents and successful image were too pop or too white and not aligned with the canon of Black music. Now, that's from the Smithsonian. Also, somebody.
I know you're correct. I heard it later, but I didn't hear it like.
Oh yeah, didn't hear it growing up. Yeah, I was just saying it for the audience too. And then I don't know why. I don't know if you said something about Margaret Sanger, but somebody was saying something about Margaret Sanger in the chat. No, you brought up MLK, and another thing too. I just, not to get off topic too much, but when I think of MLK and Margaret Sanger, just for the sake of providing information to the audience, of course, MLK was awarded the inaugural Margaret Sanger Award in 1966 for his efforts as far as social justice and whatnot is concerned. And I believe his wife accepted the award on his behalf. And you can actually go on Planned Parenthood's website and read Coretta Scott King's acceptance speech and the glowing, wonderful things that his wife and King and Martin Luther King Jr. by extension, the wonderful things that they had to say about Planned Parenthood. And I'll give it back.
I just want to piggyback off of what Chad was saying. So he mentioned the jab, right? If you all think about it and remember, somebody said in the chat, they basically, to get people to really buy into that, they had to make it more of a virtue signal. So what they said that the Peter pandemic was attacking Black people more, that Black folks were dying from it more, that it was something that was purposefully targeting Black people. And so now you're doing this to make sure that Black people don't die. And then when it came to Black people getting it, you had all the pastors getting involved. You had people making songs. They even had a drug dealer. I saw a clip of the drug dealer. So I'm just like, I saw that. But you have to put out this propaganda because Black folks are the ones that complain. Mm-hmm. I look at Black folks like that little dog at the door of your house that always barks if somebody walks by, always yap and let you know. So black people let you know when quote unquote something is wrong. So when black folks were complaining about that jab, I'm serious. When black folks weren't complaining, everybody was like, okay, well, I need to take it too because they're not complaining about it. I remember when Kanye West in his whole thing at the Drink Champs interview, he said something that most folks didn't talk about, and the room got quiet. He said the Clintons called up my wife Kim and her mother and asked them to get black people to get the snake bite. Now, just think for a second. And then he said, I don't know what I think about that, but I'm gonna leave it alone. He didn't even touch on the subject. But my point is that they kind of tied this whole thing into. They were even saying stuff like, well, even Obama said, well, rich folks getting it. You can, like, they made this thing really a black issue. And to me, that's what really made it take off. And speaking about hating on Whitney Houston, and remember MC Hammer? All these rappers hated MC Hammer. Didn't curse. MC Hammer had songs about God. Like MC Hammer was like the model rapper, and they called him a sellout. MC Hammer took care of all of his friends and his family. Everything he did good, and they said he was a sellout. So we see that, like Chad said, degeneracy is synonymous with what you would call black culture, because you see the things that are quote give black folks a good image or light, black folks reject.
Do you feel like I hate to throw all black, because it sounds like, we're like all black people, every part of black culture is bad,
Give me something good. Keisha, just give me something that you can say, this is black culture and we proud of it. Let's put it in a museum.
Just let it go.
Okay.
Look, Black. You said something one of your shows recently. You was like, man, ain't nobody finna put up with your mouth. He said every time I say something, you always talking about, man, but what about this? And what about you? Like, man, just stop. Like, ain't nobody, but every time I say something, y'all talking about, but what about what they doing over here? Man, that ain't all black people. It ain't all, just shut up. Ain't nobody finna put up with your mouth, man.
All right, y'all. Let's.
I was laughing. I was laughing so hard. I'm glad
I'm not
too,
saying
man.
necessarily that it's black culture. I'm just saying, like, there are, for instance, okay, there are, last time I looked, it was like 7,000 black men who had killed other black men, right? There's 40 million black people. And even though, yes, that's a big number out of every group of people who have been, dealing with on the same race crime. What I'm trying to say is, I think the media makes us think that all this group is doing one thing. And I was explaining this to my older daughter earlier today. So, I said, abortion is we have black women have a high rate of abortion, right? But there are millions upon millions of black women who are not having abortions. But if you look at who is having the abortions out of that statistic, yes, black women are having a lot of abortions. If you look at the black on black crime, yes, the black people, the numbers are high out of those people, but it's still a lot of black people who are not committing the crime. It's like a small group of people who are doing the most, and they get highlighted. And so one of the things that I've said, I said this like when I was on Dr. Phil, and I've said this for a long time. Start telling the stories of black people who are not doing these things, because
Right.
there are a lot of black people who are not they're not doing that. Most black people are not poor. what is it? 81% of Black people are middle class, doing just pretty much what every other person, what other people are doing. But it's always like, oh, Black people are just so, we're just so downtrodden, and we can't do, and we can't think, and we can't vote, and we can't do anything. It's like, well, the vast majority of us are, we all right. We're going right along
Keisha,
with
you know what
whatever.
Keisha, you know what I would say to that, and you are right. Just as a point of fact, that statistically speaking, I mean, yes, we know that it is a small majority, but here is where the problem lies for me. Because even though there aren't a ton of people out there, running wild and just sullying the black image, such as it is, if you were to ask just your typical straight laced, hard work, probably
Yep.
never
I know where you're
even
going with
got a
this.
parking ticket. If you spoke to them, if you talked to them, they excuse it.
Hmm.
That's the problem. They are in line with them ideologically. They
That's the
run cover
psychology of it.
for that. It's the psychology of it.
Hmm.
They endorse. They endorse. They may not be out there doing it, but again, especially it's almost the sort of the sympathy and this kind of connection they feel as though they have with it. It seems as though it gets worse the more successful, the more you sort of climb the social ladder. You ask a black person, they are right in line with the lowest of the low
Hmm.
in terms of the way
I
they
agree.
think and how they understand life and how they understand the world. And so to me, that's the larger problem. Because the
No,
ones that are
I
really
totally
making a
agree.
view, yeah, it's
I,
it's it's
I,
not it's not going to change until because they won't call it into question.
And thank you,
They protect it.
Louisiana Sister Squad, for the super chat. I appreciate the truthful Discord. Thank you, great panel. So I appreciate that. But yeah, Chuck is absolutely 100% correct. When you look at, and Larry Elder said something that I disagree with. It's actually on the YouTube, the Uncle Tom IG page, and I was asked to share this to my own IG, and I didn't because I disagree with it. But he said something to the effect of, when you look at the upward mobility of black folks during the time of Jim Crow, you saw this growth in literacy, this growth in entrepreneurship. You saw all these things, and these people weren't complaining. But today, now that the Civil Rights Act has been passed, now that this has been passed, that has been passed, we're not doing so well as black folks. And I get what he's saying, but at the same time, that kind of goes along with this narrative. Again, I live in a predominantly black town here in Texas. The median income here is well above poverty. In fact, most people who live here are middle class or upper middle class. There's a lot of wealthy blacks where I live. Most of them have great jobs. Most of the black people I know personally have really good paying jobs. Again, so you see, like when it comes down to the rubber hitting the road, many black people are actually doing well. And so this narrative that black people aren't doing well is just completely false. Again, there's this perception that black people aren't doing well because of the narrative that's being pushed. And so what we do is we mistake the narrative for reality. And to Chuck's point, because black folks who are doing well still feel that they are still the victims of oppression and systemic racism for no other reason than they've been indoctrinated to believe that, they can't see the fact that their struggles are the same as their white neighbors in terms of having bills to pay, in terms of kids that get sick, in terms of getting cut off in traffic. Literally, it's just a part of being a human. But again, black people have been conditioned to believe that to the extent that they have a day that doesn't go well, it's because of the color of their skin. And so we've been conditioned to believe that on the one hand, that critical race theory where that Keisha just brought up earlier, but we've also been conditioned to believe that we are one and the same with our lowest common denominator. We seek not to be like our best and brightest. We seek not to be like the ones among us who reject the oppression and the ones who are just taking life by the horns and just grabbing it and whatever. We seek not to be like them. We seek to identify instead with our lowest common denominator, who are projected in the mainstream media. The fatherless, thug, degenerate, gangster. These are the people that we promote and we edify in the media and say, this is the typical black man. When you look at Snoop Dogg, he grew up without a father. When you look at Puff Daddy, he grew up without a father. When you look at all these different, actors and not all of them, but when you look at many of them grew up without any kind of masculine structure in their lives. And they were picked. They were identified. And they decided to tap dance and to sing the song and to go along for the prestige, for the money, for the fame that goes along with it. And now they are the standard bearer for blackness. And rather than challenging that narrative, those of us who are black, who are middle class or upper middle class, those of us who did go to college and who do have our lives together and so on and so forth, we don't see the fact that, hey, I actually do have privilege. I actually am set up quite nicely. Instead of coming to that conclusion, we instead go along and believe the lies and the falsities in the narrative. And this is why we vote 90+% for a party that communicates to us, at Blanche's point, that to be black is to be oppressed. And we fall for the propaganda, hook, line, and sinker, over and over and over again, because there's a cognitive dissonance at play.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I look at it as being double-minded, because on one hand, it's the role. It's exactly what Roland Martin said. In his mind, he cannot even, he doesn't see that his life is like what he was taught, his values, is good for everyone. It's like, I'm going to take my life and I'm going to say, well, that's just me. But the other person over there, like, I have to, the other person, they can't really vote. This other black person, they can't really succeed. It is like, on one hand, you're living in your reality of having a two-parent home, of having all of the things that that have benefited you, for you to afford you a good life. But your neighbor, who literally, and he gave this example, my neighbor or somebody who lives on my same block, maybe they might not have the father, or maybe they might not have had the money that our family had, but somehow all of a sudden the value system, the principle that got you there, it changes. And all I'm saying is that the media is a huge fault at this thing, because and those typically elite black folks, many times those are the ones who are selling this story, who have never experienced any struggle, who have never experienced anything else. They don't understand that those principles that got them there are the same things that are needed for those other people. Instead, they do this, like, this pity party, and it's like a cognitive dissonance. Like, they don't understand that this is a principle thing. If you do X, you will get Y. It's like, no, well, my life is this, but those are it's a pity party, and it's like, it's good for me, but you need something different. And I'm just saying that, the reality is that, most black people are not struggling, but the story that is told is something totally different. And if we could connect with what's actually happening, I think that would actually change people's lives. That nobody wants to hear. Nobody is inspired by the person who had everything growing up and they never had to struggle. People are inspired and lives are changed, when you accept Christ as your Lord and Savior. But that change that comes with that is struggle to victory. That's what inspires people, when you struggle and then you get to victory. Nobody wants to hear the story about, I never had to struggle, there was everything was always given to me. That's not an inspiring story. What is inspiring and what gets people to change is when you can overcome. And we don't allow people the opportunity to say, no, you can do better. It's like, no, you're oppressed and you need to go. And, it's not something that's within you pushing you to do better. It's something that you have to go and demand, that something outside of you gives you something better.
But
it's not accurate, and it's not normal. It's not based in reality. It's not, none of it makes sense. It's not principle based. It's double-mindedness. It's literally double-mindedness, and a double-minded man is unstable in all of his ways, and it just creates this crazy cycle. Okay, I'm done.
I mean, that's why when I talk about this stuff, I talk about Black culture, because it's not per se the people, it's the culture that they indulge in. So, for example, if 7,000 dogs were getting murdered every year, white folks would go ballistic. If 7,000 dogs were getting shot down in the streets, they would shut the country down. That's culture. There are actually 7,000+ Black men getting killed every year, and nothing's getting shut down. People aren't walking on freeways, stopping the traffic. People aren't surrounding the White House. None of this stuff is happening. And it's literally, now it's gone from young men getting killed to babies getting killed. Now the violence is spilling over to women. So what I'm saying is the problem with it is the culture. So once we glorify the culture in the music, once we glorify the culture in the media, once we glorify the culture in the movies, like once the culture is glorified, now it becomes reality. So when that governor in Oregon went at 1 a.m. to sign a bill that said that Black and brown children don't have to have any criteria to graduate from high school, there should have been outrage among the people when it wasn't. Because guess what? It's okay for that because you're Black and you're oppressed. So they can take away the standards for you. So when I talk about this stuff, I know the numbers. About 2% of the population, quote unquote, Black men are causing all this havoc. Just 2%. But that 2%, is represented on a global scale as far as imagery, as far as marketing, as far as everything. So again, the average Black person, just the average Black person, I would say is just decent and hardworking and living their life. The problem is that's 2023. Let's give it 10 years. With all this social media, with all this propaganda, with all this media influence, what happens to the next generation? We're going to be okay. What about the child that's 5 years old now? Or the child that's 3 years old? They're going to be bombarded with this version of Blackness that's not good. Think about Lizzo being a standard for a woman, Cardi B being a standard for a woman, a man being a standard for a woman. Like, so again, to me, it's not individuals and sort of say Black people. To me, it's just the culture. And that same culture is growing, and not just growing with Black folks, it's growing with everybody. If you go on TikTok, you can see all the races, like these women doing this, like this, I call it ratchet behavior. You see all the women doing it. White, Asian, Hispanic, Black, they all doing the same twerk, ratchet, same thing. So this culture is spreading. And the culture actually lines up with this whole victim mentality. All this stuff to me ties up for their ultimate agenda. Is just to get everybody to be degenerates. And if everybody's degenerates, then who's gonna fight?
I agree. I don't want anybody to misunderstand what I'm saying. No, we have a serious problem. There is a serious problem with Black culture. I'm not saying that there isn't a problem. I guess I'm just being a little bit more, I'm just being, what I see as reality. Like the reality is it's this, but people as a whole, I agree with you. The culture of it doesn't understand the reality. The media, what we have come to accept. I mean, they're showing porn to kids. Nobody is flipping out to the level, like you just said. If they were doing the same, an equal thing to animals, to dogs, people would be outraged. I don't know what the equivalent would be of showing porn to kids, but whatever that equivalent would be to animals, people would be outraged. It would be ministers, the church, everybody would be. It would be all hands on deck. We're not seeing that, so I totally agree. I don't want anybody to misunderstand. I understand exactly what you're saying. There are serious problems, especially when it's trickling over to the next generation. I'm just stating some statistics, I guess, and hoping that people realize the reality. The reality is, stop letting people try to tell you that you ain't never going to be anything. Stop letting people tell you that you can't vote. Stop letting people tell you that, you need some image on TV for you to be able to achieve what you can, what God has put in you to achieve. God has already told you who you are. You don't need some other person, a face. I need a representative on TV, so therefore that I can be everything that I need to be. No, you don't. No, you don't. So I just want to,
Yeah.
just for the record, I totally agree. I was just,
Well, yeah, Keisha, I get what you're saying, and I think we do. Like, I think everybody on the panel does too, because there's there's a lot of nuance to what we're talking about. Right. I did make a video covering a little bit of this topic, and I brought Martin Luther King into it. I want to try to get through a live without mentioning Martin Luther King. It's going to happen one day, but I wanted to play this clip before I play the Kaepernick clip that touched on a little bit of what we're talking about. So I'm going to bring that up now. Let's see here. Can y'all see that or no? What do y'all see?
I can't see anything.
I can't see anything but you.
You can't see anything but me? Of course
I
not.
I can see it because I got YouTube up on a separate computer.
Now I can see it on YouTube.
Yeah, it's a delay, but yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to be fancy and it didn't work. Okay, I guess I can't share my screen. I'm gonna try this one more time. Hold on. Open system settings. Privacy and security. Let's see here. Screen recording. Ecamm, yes. Alright, so it should allow it now. Back. Okay. Let's try this one more time. What do y'all see now? On your screen?
Orange screen.
Just an orange screen?
Yeah.
Orange drink in a cup.
It's
All
that
right.
lean.
Little thing.
Or maybe if I try it this way. Hold on, let's see. You still just see an orange screen?
Like an orange flower now.
All right, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's not important. I guess God didn't want it to happen. No, but basically it was a video that I edited, which basically it's one of Martin Luther King's closest friends talking about how he would strategically go to these churches in upper middle class black areas. And because at the time in the 60s, there was a disconnect between middle class and upper middle class blacks and these blacks who lived in the inner city who had close proximity to a lot of these black militant groups. And so this message of blackness and militantism, if that's a word, resonated more closely with those who were closer to those activists than it did blacks who were kind of secluded and, were going to church and playing golf and just being Americans. And so what Martin Luther King did is he sought to kind of galvanize and make one and the same the inner city black with the middle class suburban black, to make them one and the same in terms of how they vote, in terms of how they think, and in terms of their involvement in the civil rights movement. And so I don't want to say that Martin Luther King orchestrated this kind of one body politic amongst black people, because he didn't really orchestrate much of anything. He was merely a volunteer, a willing volunteer in this kind of destruction that took place. But to say that he was a mastermind, like, people like to describe nonviolence to Martin Luther King as though he came up with this ideology. No, that ideology was taught to him by Bayard Rustin, who learned it from his communist training camp as a young person in the communist movement and the Communist Party. And so he actually went to India and sat under Gandhi. Bayard Rustin did in his earlier days. So again, it was Rustin who taught nonviolence to Martin Luther King, because Martin Luther King loved guns. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's neither here nor there. So I wanted to let's see here. All right, so I wanted to play this clip.
Tonight, I thank many people who supported my career, and many of you are my closest friends. Some of you are also considered experts of the game as much as I am. Out of the people I mentioned tonight, most of you are black men, my brothers. Some of you athletes, some of you not athletes, but we are all black men first. Something we have more expertise in than any aspect of our lives. I'm a firm believer that if you want to create change, you better start with your friends and your family. So I'm starting here today. The first thing people see when they look at me is not a Pro Football Hall of Famer, or a husband, or a father. They view me first as a black man.
Like, first of all,
Hey, Chad, you didn't catch it. You must not be a football guy, because that's what I was talking about when I said Champ Bailey's Hall of Fame induction
Yeah.
speech. This is what I was talking about.
yeah, I know that, and
Okay.
that's why I brought it up. Is because
Oh,
you said
okay.
it.
I thought you had it queued up before I even mentioned it.
I did it. I downloaded it as soon as you brought it up.
Oh, okay. I'm contributing to the show. All right. Blanche looks so disappointed, like he can't believe it. Yeah, I told you, bro. It gets worse. Keep listening, Blanche.
No, but first of all, first impressions, because this is my first time seeing it. First impressions.
Okay.
You have this grown man who's sitting up there, and he's talking about the first thing that people see when they look at me is a black man. Not that I'm a father, not that I'm a pro NFL Hall of Famer, not that I'm this, not that I'm that, but I'm a black man. Can it get any more ridiculous than that? For real, like, can it get like that problem is up here. That problem is in your head. That problem isn't a reality. And
Right.
and even if it were, so who
So-
cares?
Man,
Like-
first
like-
thing they see is that big water head, man. That's the first thing they see, man. Come on, champ. Don't do it, man. Come on.
All I saw was that forehead. No, but it's like, come on, man. Like, to me, this is pathetic, and it's not a good look for black men. It's just not. It's not a good look. Like, you have this man who's established, who's successful by his own admission. He's a father. He's a this. He's a that. You have a lot to be grateful for, but you're still so paranoid. You're still so frail, so fragile that you, like, at the height of your career, when you're being rewarded for your accomplishments, the only thing you can talk about is when people see me, they see that I'm a black man. Come on now.
You know what it's like, it's so many black people are some of the first to say, I keep it real, or I'm going to be authentic, and I'm just going, all of this realness and stuff. But what I got out of what he said is that I am so concerned about what other people think of me. The first thing that you see is you see a black man. How do you know that? Like, first of all, how do you know what other people are thinking? Like, they might be thinking you got a big water head. Like, Lance just said, like, you don't know that. They might be thinking, oh wow, he's a handsome guy, or might be thinking like, oh wow, I don't know this guy. He's a big guy. Oh wow, cool. I'm meeting a football player, like whatever. Like, you are assuming to know, Vodi Bakum calls it ethnic Gnosticism. You think you are all knowing because you're Black of what somebody else is thinking. You have no freaking clue. Like, you don't know what these people are thinking about you. They probably wasn't even thinking about you being Black until you said something like, oh yeah, like, it's like this new definition of like color blindness. It's like, now we're not supposed to be colorblind because that's supposed to be bad. And people are saying, like, they talk about it as if you're literally colorblind. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. It's like, no, people know that you're Black. Okay, we see that you're Black. We're just saying that nobody's judging you because you're Black. It's like, no, I want you to see that I'm Black now. It's like, pick a struggle already. Like, pick a struggle. Do you want me to see your Black behind, or do you not? I'm so over this. Like, you are totally assuming. I'm sorry, I might be a little loud. You are assuming that you know what somebody else is thinking, yet you can't vote. You have all this knowledge, but you don't know how to vote.
But you're a king.
Knowledge, but you oppress. You can literally read minds now. But but you can't somehow make it in America. It's just.
He sat up there and said, "This one goes out to my brothers, my Black brothers, because first and foremost, we are Black men." Like, come on now, like, are you really? But the thing is, he's not lying, because a lot of Black men think this way. I'm a Black man first and foremost, and it's like, dude, the thing is, like, when it comes to We Are Mitch and all the others. DL Hughley, who else? I know I'm missing some of them, but anyway, when it LeBron James, when it comes to these folks, what'd you say? All of them.
Same Shannon Sharp. It's all the same script.
But when it comes to them, it's like, I'm not impressed by them. Like, you like a fool, like a gullible idiot, fell for the ruse that's been played on you. You fell for it. You've been hoodwinked. You've been bamboozled. All the rest of it. Like, you've been fooled. And so even someone like a T.I. who can get up there and can use all these words to articulate and express his oppression, like the fact that, Roland Martin's the same way. Rashad Ritchie is the same way. Even though you can get up there and put sentences together, I'm still not impressed by you, because you, at the end of the day, have simply fallen for exactly what the Marxist types, the secular types have been pushing on you for the past half century or more. Like, you fell for it. And so it's the same thing as, like, for example, if you go to a public school in America and by the time you graduate, you took everything that you were taught wholesale, you didn't question it, you believe it, and I'm supposed to be what, impressed by you? Never mind the fact that you didn't go out of your way to do your own research to verify whether what you were taught was true. Like, I'm more impressed by that kind of person. This is one of the things that attracted me to everybody who's on this panel, is the fact that you were saying something that was, and it became clear to me that you did your own research. You did your own homework. You dared to ask questions. You dared to step out and to be bold, notwithstanding all of the hate and vitriol and nonsense that comes from people who don't know any better, but feel that they are equipped and qualified to question you when they haven't done their research, when they haven't done anything, and they haven't put any kind of skin in the game to figure out, well, have I been lied to, my entire life? And so I'm not impressed by people like this. But
right.
Again, it's cool, it's sexy to be a victim, to be oppressed, and even in a moment where you're supposed to be accepting a reward for something you've contributed in the way of athleticism, you make it about what? The color of your skin. We see the same thing happening at the Academy Awards. We see the same thing happening in NASCAR. We see the same thing like everywhere there's Black people, there's this push to make it about the color of their skin. Like, you can't just be like, I'm surprised Tiger Woods haven't done this yet. You know what I'm saying? Everywhere there's Black, you saw it with Bubba Wallace and NASCAR. Everywhere there's Black people, it's like they're getting the same messaging The same people who were in Kanye West's, ear. Hey, talk about this, push this, peddle this, push that propaganda. And they fall for it. They go along with it because to the extent that they say no, they're afraid that they're going to lose their positioning. They're going to lose their stature. And some of them, probably like him, genuinely believe it. And so it doesn't take much convincing. It doesn't take much dangling of a carrot or anything like that, because it's like, okay, yeah, I am oppressed. Well, anyway, let's continue on with the clip.
But hold on, Chet. Hold on.
What's up?
I just want to say one thing. Can we please stop acting like being black in America is something that's unique? Like, people see black folks every day, like on like the notion that when you go into a grocery store that white people are shocked that you're black. Like we see black people every day on billboards and magazines, on TV. Like, black people are represented politics everywhere in this country. The notion that white people are still shocked to see black people in 2023.
White people don't care.
It's insanity. Literally, you see black people everywhere. Come on, man. This is ridiculous. Come on, not Champ, man. I'm looking at all my heroes, y'all. Come on, man.
I told you. Hey, Blanche, dog, Champ, man. I wore 24 because of Champ. That was my man. I heard this. I said, oh my God. It gets worse.
Goodness.
It's gonna get worse.
Go ahead, man.
Let's go. Let's go.
Come on, man. Goodness.
You're right.
Tonight,
Blanche is genuinely disappointed. What were you saying, Keisha?
I was just saying, right. Like, I was thinking about, really quick, people that live in like Iowa. You'll hear black people, or like where there's like a few black people. You'll hear those black people like, oh my God, I was the only black person. Nobody knew. Like still nobody was probably treating you all that different. It's you who are the one with the mental, craziness in your own head. Like, nobody cares. Like, nobody really cares. Nobody's checking for you, okay? It's insane.
Here we go.
my brothers, some of you athletes, some of you not athletes, but we are all black men first. Something we have more expertise in than any aspect of our lives. I'm a firm believer that if you want to create change, you better start with your friends and your family. So I'm starting here today. The first thing people see when they look at me is not a Pro Football Hall of Famer, or a husband, or a father. They view me first as a black man.
No, they definitely see you as a Pro Football Hall of Famer. I guarantee you that's why they showed up. That's why they came. Because if you was just a regular black guy, nobody would be checking for you, homeboy. Okay? Like, no, that's why they in line. That's why they're checking for you, because you're a Pro Football Hall of Famer.
But my whole thing is this. Like, which is it? You just said that I'm a black man first. You said that with pride, right? You said that with this kind of boldness, as this is something we should be proud of. We're all black men first. You said that. But then in the very next sentence, you say that as though it's a shameful thing. The first thing that people see when they look at me is a black man, and then you wipe your face as if you just shed a tear. So which is it? Like, this is a contradictory, the contradiction that is blackness. On the one hand, you want to be, you wear it as a badge of honor, that you should recognize it and you're proud of it. And then on the very next sentence, you're saying it as though it's a shameful thing that people look at you and they see a black man. Like, I can't keep up. I literally can't keep up.
Chuck, is he going to cry?
Talk about black girl magic and then being oppressed.
Chuck, I'm not going to spoil it, bro. Just keep. I'm not going to spoil it, bro. Just keep watching. I'm not going to spoil it.
Lord have mercy.
Goodness.
Some of you athletes, saying that, but we are all black men first. Something we have more expertise in than any aspect of our lives. I'm a firm believer that if you want to create change, you better start with your friends and your family. So I'm starting here today. The first thing people see when they look at me is not a Pro Football Hall of Famer, or a husband, or a father. They view me first as a black man. So on behalf of all the black men that I've mentioned tonight, and many more out there, who've had the most of the same experience that I've had in my lifetime, we say this to all of our white friends. When we tell you about our fears, please listen. When we tell you we're afraid for our kids, please listen.
Oh my gosh.
Why is he begging white people? Like, and what are you begging them for? Like, I'm sure you live in a very nice house. I'm sure there's a gate that surrounds it. I'm sure your kids are not worried about white people coming for them because they're busy living it up with their friends and playing basketball on a private basketball court and going wherever they want, whenever they want to. I'm sure that they're not worried about some white man who couldn't care less about them coming and doing like what? Like your fears, your concerns? Like, what are you talking about? This man is outside of his mind. I'll keep playing it.
Outside of his mind.
When we tell you there are many challenges we face because of the color of our skin, please listen. And please do not get caught up in how the message is delivered.
These people see white people as God. I'm convinced.
For facts.
I'm thoroughly convinced. Like what? Like you're groveling. You're asking. You're begging white people to believe you about your concerns. It's like why do you have such a lofty view of white people that you feel like you must come to them hands and knees, begging them to pay attention to you? Like why is that? I don't know. Like this man, I'm gonna pray for him. I mean, this video is from 2019. Hopefully he's.
No. I'm with Umar Daza. He needs some lashes. No.
He needs prayer.
I know you want to go off. Go off.
No, we'll finish it. I'll stop pausing it.
Yes. Yes, most of us are black men or are athletes, but we are black men first. Understand this. The things that make us great on the field, like our size and our aggression, are the same things that can get us killed off the field. I believe if we start listening, there's no telling the progress we can make. All of us are dads, sons, brothers, your friends. We all understand that if we can't get our friends to listen, then no one will. And to my black brothers, if you do not have anything positive to say about our social challenges, please keep your mouth shut.
What?
I close tonight by saying there's nothing more important in a success story than being inspired by someone or something. I'm not the only one who has a long list of inspirations. I am surrounded on the stage by my new teammates. Love you guys.
He almost said niggas.
He did, didn't he?
He did. He did.
Hey, y'all catch Shannon Sharp almost cuss on Undisputed the other day. That's another side issue.
He almost said Negroes, or I don't know. See,
I am surrounded on this stage by my new teammates. Love you guys. So many of these great men inspired me, and I know I would not be here without them. If not for them, I would not be standing here today. I will remain forever humbled by this honor. Love you guys. Thank you. Have a good night.
man, get off my screen.
When you get a chance though, man, Blanche, watch the whole thing. It's about what 25, 30 minutes long. Watch the whole thing, dog. If you could stomach it, because that wasn't it.
Oh,
that was cringy.
Oh yeah. When he said for all the people I named, yeah, you missed the part. He go through the George floor. He go through it all.
What a mess. It's late right now. Do y'all want to get into this Colin Kaepernick clip, or do y'all want to save that for next live?
Shoot, man. It's on you.
I think it's 1 o'clock where y'all are. It's only 12 where I am. So
yeah, it's 1:08 over here. I think don't we lose an hour tonight?
Oh, is that tonight?
Is it?
I think.
I mean, I'm up now. I mean, but it's up to y'all.
Hold on. I don't want you to gloss over this. Because we just skipping past like nothing happened. Now, when church used to go to church, they used to have an altar call. Where, you go up to the altar and you start basically pleading to God. That's what this was to white people. He literally is pleading to white people, and then he tells them, but shut up if you don't. First he said, y'all listen. Then he was like, but y'all shut up, dude. I can't. I'm gonna get mad. I'm gonna get mad, Chuck. I might. Oh man.
So, but I first heard it, I lost all respect. Like the champ used to be one of my heroes, bro. I just lost all respect. Not a man at all. So the full speech is worse.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
and it's crazy. Like say, if you don't know sports or football, like if you see like Champ Bailey, like don't get it twisted. If Champ Bailey was walking down the street, if you knew you're gonna say, oh yo, that's Champ Bailey. You're not gonna see a black man. You're gonna see Champ Bailey is arguably top 10, maybe even top 5 in the history of the NFL for his position. He played cornerback. You see him, you say, yo, that's Champ Bailey. You don't just be like, oh, that's a black. Come on, man. He not just some dude. You know what I mean? Like he's not even some great player that you got to be like, oh yeah, Google me and pull him up. Like, oh yeah, okay, I see. No. You will recognize Champ Bailey if you've seen him, if you follow football. So he full of it, man. Not a man.
Thank you, Mrs. Littleton, for the super sticker. Really appreciate it. Thank you also. Cool.
Sorry.
No, thank you also, Cool Heem, for the super sticker as well. But go ahead.
This is what women have to contend with today. Yes,
but it's y'all's fault, though. It's y'all's fault.
Why do you keep saying that?
No, because look, feminism started out as an idea, right?
Oh, but this goes back to the garden, though. That's
it does, well, hey. No. So.
No, this one ultimately rests upon the wide, broad, strong shoulders of men.
Hold on, Keisha. He said the same physical stature we have in the field gets us killed.
Listen, I know we're in the time of picking genders and stuff, but look, God made y'all how he made you. Y'all are equipped to handle the pressures of life. Y'all are equipped to handle these kinds of things. Y'all, look, when the women was sitting out of line, y'all was supposed to check that.
Keisha, for Keisha and all the women, when y'all heard Champ Bailey speaking, honestly, how did y'all feel about him?
What I thought was something that I would not say in company. I'll say that in private. But let me just say this. I don't know how his wife is not like, I don't want to make children. I don't want to like go over there somewhere. Like, I don't understand how she hears this and it's like, yes, I am inspired. You know, this to me, what I heard in all seriousness, what I heard was a man whose whole life was at the feet of a white man or any man. Like, it doesn't matter the color. It's just that it sounds like his direction in life is placed at the feet of a man, and that man is not Christ. Like, if you, it's a turnoff. I'm just like,
y'all see what our home. Y'all see what our homegirl, Angel, what she put in the chat. She summed it up in one word. I don't know if I need to say it, but
yes, exactly, Angel. I'm sorry, exactly, Angel. That is exactly what I'm saying.
Hey, this is a family friendly show.
Yeah, it's a family show.
Read my mind, because
Lord have mercy. You women are wild.
Not interested.
Oh Lord.
I don't even know. He says he's a father, but with that kind of mindset, I don't know how he made the kids that he got. Like, I don't know what, you know what it is? It's because he's the football player. Like, that's all he had to be. He didn't have to think. He didn't have to be anything else. And I don't want to disrespect his wife. You know, I'm sure she's a lovely woman. But I'm just saying, like, that's hard. That, like, when you hear that objectively, it just sounds very, I don't have control over, I have no self-agency. I don't have control over my own life. And that's just not a turn on. It is just,
And if you saw him if you see him on the field, Keisha, just go watch some highlights and match it up to this speech. You're gonna be like, what in the? Just go watch the highlights. You're gonna be like, what in the world?
That's how he was dating. He was just like, watch my reel. Because he sure enough wasn't opening up his mouth talking about social issues or, you know, society or anything like that, because he just sounds weak. But that is exactly what I'm saying. It's like, on one hand, it's double-minded. On one hand, he's like this macho, I can take anything, you know, I can, you know, I'm going to be the protector, provide, you know, I'm going to do this. And then the other hand, he's like, oh, please, white sir, please just accept me and listen to what I have to say, good sir. It's like, if you don't get your blankety blank up and like, what?
Almost made
Okay,
Keisha cuss.
I'm done.
Lord have mercy. All right,
No.
so we're gonna try to muscle through this Colin Kaepernick, because the title of this show is, after all, that, you know, Colin Kaepernick is a psyop, which I totally believe he is. He's meant to keep this narrative going that blackness is one and the same with hair, clothes, certain dialect, so on and so forth. They want so badly to keep black people from assimilating to what is decent, what is honorable, what is, and, you know, of integrity. And so for that reason, ever so often they're going to continue to push this narrative. And there's a lot of planning and strategy that's behind this. We see it in the communist Comintern. We see this in a lot of writ that's out there that's available for everyone to see, and all kinds of archives, such and so forth. how there's this whole strategy and agenda behind this. And so again, Colin Kaepernick is just kind of playing his part, so to speak, and he's getting paid quite handsomely for it. Let's see here.
Colin Kaepernick has got a powerful message for younger people in his new book. He says, stand up for what you believe in. Now, this comes almost 7 years after the former San Francisco 49ers quarterback started taking a knee during the national anthem to protest racial injustice and police brutality. His new young adult book is called Colin Kaepernick, Change the Game. Details of his coming-of-age journey and his introduction to activism in high school. Adriana Diaz sat down with Kaepernick at a Chicago bookstore for his only TV interview about this book.
So just first impressions off of what Gail King just said about, this is his graphic novel about his coming to age. And we covered this earlier in the show, where you have this kind of thing that goes on, unfortunately, with some mixed race people, where they go through this period in their life where they feel this kind of draw, this kind of intimidation that you're not really black because you dress this way, or one of your parents is white, or what have you. And so based upon that pressure, they give in to it, not merely because of the pressure, but also because they think it's cool. They think that their black side is cooler than their white side, and so they want to give in to it. And it's not just a mixed race individual thing. This is an all people thing. It was certainly a thing for me growing up. For me, like growing up, I was always interested in reading. I was always interested in certain things that other kids weren't interested in, black or white. And I did get made fun of. Like, I went to a school that was ethnically diverse. It was predominantly white. I think there was like maybe 70% white kids that went there. But to the extent that we had black people in our school, like, they would make fun of me because of the way that I talked, the way that I acted, the way that I, like, how I carried myself, so on and so forth. And so if I was just mentally retarded, I probably would have gone along with whatever. I would have, caved into that peer pressure, and I would have wanted the cornrows, and I would have wanted to wear the FUBU and the Dada Supreme and all that. But I didn't, you know what I mean? And so, like, I didn't really put a lot of interest and concern into what I was wearing. I was that kid that wore like khakis and like a collared shirt. Like, I thought that was like more me than a lot of what I saw. Because again, like I was born in 1990. I came of age in the early 2000s. It was around the time where, riding spinners was cool, and, boozy, and, a lot of the dirty South music and all that.
Boozy?
Yeah. Boozy, bootsy, however you say it.
You said it right. You said it right.
But like,
is that a drink? What is a boozy?
Bougie. No, but like, again, it was like when you look at like a lot of the early 2000s music and that whole early 2000s kind of like hip hop scene with the baggy clothes and the tall tees, and like that to me was repulsive. Like, I didn't like that. Like, I didn't think it was attractive or cool. I thought it was actually quite comical and clownish. And so it wasn't like I didn't chop it up to race. I just chopped it up as to that's nasty looking to me. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, it's interesting how if you are a kid and you have an interest in something that will, in a sense, set you up for success, black culture says that thing is corny, cheesy, that's a square, all the things to get you to not go along with that and to instead go along with something that is repulsive, repugnant, and nasty and disgusting and grotesque. You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, again, like, that's not to say that people who do give into that culture, there's no hope for them, because some of the smartest people I know were that kid in high school where they were part of that kind of hip hop vibe, that hip hop culture. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, like, you can't convince me that is what black people are supposed to do, even at an early age. So anyway.
For sure.
Please welcome Colin Kaepernick. The offseason for Colin Kaepernick looks much different these days. The 35-year-old has a nonprofit.
You're already creating community.
Empowering Black and brown youth, a publishing company, and media projects, including a docuseries on Netflix and an upcoming documentary with director Spike Lee.
And Spike Lee's a problem. This dude is a big problem.
Yes.
Problem. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. Like, the thing is with Spike Lee, like, you would think that he would have grown out of this by now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Colin Kaepernick, he looked like such a fool. I ain't playing dress up. Running around with this stupid ass afro and this black leather. He looks stupid. He just looks. Anyway, go ahead, man. I'm about to go off.
I'm ready for Chuck to go off. I'm ready for, you know.
You know, I try to keep it, you know, I'm trying to keep it cool.
He's also a new
Not my boy. Not in the presence of Chad and Blanchard. If you want some old ghetto crazy, come to my stuff. You want me to go off? I go off. But I don't want to corrupt you guys, you know, with my
with your Detroit swag.
Yeah, man.
All bets off, and it's all bets off.
Hey, did I say
corrupt good morals? So,
hey, did I say boozy wrong, Keisha? I didn't get it.
It was close enough.
You got a Z to it.
All right.
Yeah.
Spike Lee. He is also a new father who's spreading a.
He looks like a fag in this.
Yeah.
Oh, is that word not allowed on YouTube? It's probably gonna get banned, but all right.
I don't know, man. It's a stick, man. It's a stick.
Yeah.
That's what the word means.
He looks like a bundle of sticks.
It's a bundle of sticks. That's what the word means.
He is also a new father who's spreading a message of empowerment in his new graphic novel, Change the Game, written with author.
What'd you say?
Yeah, he looks so weak.
Soft.
What happened to him? Goodness.
And University of Chicago professor Eve L. Ewing.
I love how you depict yourself in this book, not as some big shot hero, but as a shy, insecure high schooler like we all were. I mean,
like how are you a man and you're sitting here letting her talk to you like that? I like how like shy you look and how, you know, pathetic and weak you look. That's just so attractive to me.
It is. She's a feminist.
Of course.
And an upcoming documentary with director Spike Lee. He is also a new father who's spreading a message of empowerment in his new graphic novel, Change the Game, written with author and University of Chicago professor Eve L. Ewing.
I love how you depict yourself in this book.
Why do these women wear these, like these women who are this certain type politically and, you know, in terms of activism, they always have a certain look and she fits it to a T with the color of her hair, the glasses, the weird shaped glasses. Yeah. They all have a certain look. What'd you say?
Because it's a cult.
Okay.
It's a cult. Cults have, you know, they have a certain look.
Yeah.
I'm writing a book on this.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Somebody
is this the supposed professor that co-authored this book?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know he couldn't. He don't read or write that well. So I know he just.
No. Yeah, you're right, Blanche.
Okay, since we're pausing right here. No, seriously. So the book novel, they keep calling it a graphic novel. Y'all, it's a comic book. Okay.
Right.
It's not a real book. It's a comic book. This whole thing, the title is perfect, a psyop, because that is exactly what this is. It is not a graphic novel where you think, you know, there are a few pictures in between. No, this is a comic book because Colin Kaepernick, unfortunately, maybe he just knows his market, that he knows that people who, you know, who are readers are probably not going to read a real novel. So I have to put the pictures and like paint by numbers
Right.
pretty much in
I,
this
you know,
book because these kids can't read this. They can't read in public. These kids can't read. This is not
well,
a graphic novel in the way that you would think of a graphic novel. This is a comic book. Rant over. This is ridiculous.
It's a
yeah,
pop-up book.
I'm not a huge fan. I mean, I don't know how to describe it necessarily. You know, like graphic novels, comic books are kind of like in that same, sort of like in the same vein. Like graphic novels are sort of like a subgenre of comic books. I mean, you know, there have been some graphic novels that have been, you know, you had The Watchmen and, you know, V for Vendetta. You know, graphic novels can provide very sort of highbrow, really substance laden material, but it's just really him and what he's doing. You know what I mean? I wouldn't even. I don't want to disrespect. I don't want to disrespect the graphic novel genre by, you know, I mean, trying to associate. You know what? I mean, sure enough, you know, true enough, the comic book, the whole industry. I mean, art just as a whole has just been going downhill in the United States for a long time. But yeah, it's the content and the substance of this project. It isn't so much graphic novels as a whole. It's what he's doing.
Correct. I'm sorry. Thank you for correcting me. Yes, you're absolutely right. It's this one. This is not.
Yeah,
You would think of a typical graphic novel. This
yeah.
is
So there have been
what
some good
I've
ones.
seen is more of a comic book. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh no. Chicken Grease said it sounds like Rossetti was reading The Color Purple. Yo. Y'all crazy. For the next 8 or 10 months,
MISTER.
MISTER, Mister.
Period.
Y'all are hilarious.
Jaw. J-A-R. Jaw.
Oh my goodness. Cat. A-E-T. Cat.
Goodness gracious. Oh my goodness. Y'all so crazy.
I was watching some
What's systematic? It be kind of like.
I was watching some pro-black kind of movie or show or something that they had on Netflix, and they had these black teenagers that were super woke, and they started doing this little thing here. And the first thing that occurred to my mind was, "You with me? Break apart, knocky da da."
Oh my goodness.
Knocky da da. All right, there we go.
Colin Kaepernick,
author and
I'm sorry, y'all. It's just, I know that book is written on a third grade level. I know that book is written on a third grade level. I know it is. I know it's the most simplest writing in that book. Okay.
University of Chicago professor Eve L. Ewing.
I love how you depict yourself in this book, not as some big shot hero, but as a shy, insecure.
Dad, I need you to take the car for an oil change, but we should be able to squeeze your haircut in first. No thanks, says Colin Kaepernick.
Schooler like we all were.
Yes,
I mean, I'm speaking for you, but
No, absolutely.
Growing up, I was I think still am a pretty introverted person. I hope it's true to form, and that's just kind of how I navigate the world.
It's his true.
Let's see here. whatever I do, I really just want to be the best version of myself. Do you get what I mean? I do get what you mean.
High school coming of age story. His journey embracing his blackness despite resistance from many, including.
She just said embracing his blackness while they have a picture of him putting a do-rag on. So I guess blackness is putting do-rags on and looking angry, right?
Yep, for them.
His journey embracing his blackness despite resistance from many, including his white adoptive parents.
I know my parents love me, but there were still very problematic things that I went through. I think it was important to show that, no, this can happen in your own home, and how we move forward collectively.
So let me get this straight. Your parents telling you to be decent, to look professional, to make good grades, like that is an indictment on blackness? Like, help me understand. Like seriously, like he's saying this kind of thing happens in the home as if it's kind of like some kind of child molestation or some kind of like something serious. But no, he's merely talking about a parent being a parent as being one and the same with white supremacy, as being one and the same with child abuse, as being one and the same with racism. This is what he's talking about. Let's not get this twisted. They're not talking about child abuse. They're not talking about pedophilia. They're not talking about any of that. They're talking merely about parents wanting the best for their children, and as such, getting them to cut their hair, getting them to clean up their room, getting them to make good grades. And you're saying that's white supremacy?
Yep.
While addressing the racism that is being perpetuated.
He took cues from his icon, basketball star Allen Iverson, who he said wore his blackness like a suit of armor. And teenage Kaepernick wanted cornrows to match. He's getting what roles, his mom asked?
Oh, your hair's not professional. Oh, you look like a little thug.
You
Your
do.
mom said that to you.
Yeah.
Your mom told you that. You look like a little thug. That
Yeah,
this
man.
looks like a woman's hairdo, and you have it on your head. Your mom told you that? Phew.
My mom talked to me crazy, man. Crazy.
Mhm.
And those become spaces where it's like, okay, how do I navigate this situation now? But it also is informed why I have my hair long today.
The grown-up version of Eve wanted to go back in time and give young Colin a lot of hugs. And I was really moved and saddened by the level of kind of self-awareness that he had to develop at a very young age without a lot of guidance.
How emasculating.
Right.
Like, how emasculating. So you mean to tell me that your relationship with Colin Kaepernick heretofore has been that of him being super vulnerable, super weak, talking about his trauma of having parents who cared about him, and your conclusion, your synopsis in all of this is to say that the grown woman of me, the big me, the dominant me, wants to go back in time and hug this little baby boy child in the form and fashion of Colin Kaepernick. So this is the demeanor of feminism compared to the modern man. The women have taken the dominant role. The women have taken the alpha role. Yeah. These are the strong, and I remember Blanche just a few days ago. He played a scene. I don't know what this was from, but you had Queen Latifah and Ludacris. This is the image. This is the depiction that they're trying to push forth as the woman, particularly the black woman, being the strong, dominant person, and the man by comparison being weak, being emasculated, being made to be humiliated, and needing the kind of strength of the woman to protect him and to take care of him because he's not adequate enough to take care of himself. That's basically all this is. You see it in this clip basically, but you also see it too in narrative and propaganda that's being pushed on a daily basis.
Former NFL quarterback.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's disgusting because it's not just about the book. It's not just about Colin Kaepernick. These ideas ruin families. Families are it's the whole reason for this whole thing. Families are like little armies. when you have your little army intact, you can, you can fight together. This is destructive of the family, because if the man, who's again another football player, who is kind of like, embodies the strength and leadership and providing and all of the things that men need to be in a functioning society, he's dwindled down, and this woman is sitting next to him talking about, oh, I just wanted to give you a hug, when if his father was sitting there, would look him in his eye, and I know I'm a woman, but I'm imagining what a father would say to his son. It would be like, boy, get up. Yeah, you doggone right, your mother is not going to tell you that it's okay to wear your hair like this because it depicts XYZ, and he's going to get his son in line. But this woman, he's surrounded by all of these women who is like, oh yes, come cry on my shoulder. Oh yes, it's tearing away at. He thinks it's uplifting blackness, which means nothing, when it's tearing down his manhood, which is everything. It's crazy.
Wow. Wow.
But doesn't it seem like it's like the interviewers, the teacher, and the lady with the braids is the parent and he's the child?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Like he's a little boy sitting next to his mommy.
Yeah.
And I'm tripping because I'm sitting back and I'm watching this sympathetic, this sycophantic, disgusting, pandering, groveling media. And I'm saying, when is someone going to, and I'm assuming there was probably some pre-screening. He was probably told what questions were going to be asked beforehand. But I would like to really get to know the man in his mind and probe and give us something, pierce the veil. I want to know, how does it feel being abandoned? How does it feel, your father not longing for that connection? How does that make you feel? You know what I mean? Like it's amazing. They're not asking this man anything that would force him to think, to go beyond the surface, to give the people something that they don't, that they couldn't just glean from just, some cursory, run through of the facts. I mean, this interview ought to be ashamed of herself. Gayle King, the whole, this is just, what a fiasco. This is absurd.
Very absurd.
Yeah. That's a really good point, Chuck. Like,
Colin
because
Kaepernick has a.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead. My bad.
So my mother did not know her father, and my father was adopted. And my father at 16, he went on a search to find his father. This was a big deal in my family, like later on in his life. And the abandonment that I witnessed from both my parents, from not knowing their father, Chuck, you are spot on, because I don't believe for 1 second, as present that I believe his adopted father probably was, there is no question in my mind that did not grow up wanting to know his real father and why he was given up. Why that's the question of so many adopted kids. Why didn't you think I was worthy enough to take care of, to keep?
Right.
So yeah, those are the real questions. Instead,
That's
they're
right.
talking about blackness, whatever the freak that even means. And he's like layering on the trauma, because he's still not, nobody is helping him to confront the real issues. What's that? That's crazy. It's making a dangerous man. That is a dangerous man. That's toxic masculinity right there. Because that is not a man who is not whole, who is left to, who doesn't have another man or mentor, or even if he has no connection with God. That's a dangerous man.
Absolutely.
He knows his birth mom though.
Yeah.
Like he knows her. I think yeah, he knows.
Colin Kaepernick has got a.
He took cues from his icon, basketball star Allen Iverson, who he said wore his blackness like a suit of armor. And teenage Kaepernick wanted cornrows to match. He's getting what roles, his mom asked?
Oh, your hair's not professional. Oh, you look like a little thug.
Your mom said that to you.
Yeah. And those become spaces where it's like, okay, how do I navigate this situation now? But it also is informed why I have my hair long today.
The grown-up version of Eve wanted to go back in time and give young Colin a lot of hugs. And I was really moved and saddened by the level of kind of self-awareness that he had to develop at a very young age without a lot of guidance.
The former NFL quarterback who once led the 49ers to the Super Bowl was known in high school for his baseball. The pitcher even had major league interest, but he bucked public pressure and followed his heart to the gridiron.
There were a lot more black people in football that I was like, I found some community here.
Do you still want to play football professionally?
Absolutely. I woke up this morning before our events, trained 5-6 days a week. I'm still up at 4:30. I go get my training in. That passion is still there, and the ability is still there.
Bro, you're 35 years old.
No, it ain't. No, it ain't. You a bum. Bum. No. Get that up, homeboy.
This dude is training every day to go back to the plantation.
Right. That's what he said. He said it's like a plantation.
Yeah, he said it's a plant. He said it's a plantation. He's training every day to go back to the plantation, and he just said, "I had the ability at 35 years old and 7 years removed."
Oh.
And where, who else has that happened to? Where they've been out of the NFL for that amount of time, and then they go to a workout, and the NFL just lets them, like a team just picks them back up because they see. Never mind the fact that you have all these high school students who are graduating, or these college students, I should say, who are graduating, who have uber talent and haven't even reached their stride yet, haven't even reached their peak yet. And some of them who have is like, I mean, you want that young, fresh player who can be a franchise quarterback. Why would I get a 35-year-old pushing 36 social justice activist who's going to bring more problems than he is victories? Like, why? Like, what GM would want that at all? You know what I mean? Like, regardless of race. I mean, the only person that's happened to was Brett Favre. But he was a phenomenal quarterback. Whenever he retired from I think it was the Packers. Then he went to the Jets for like a season. He left, and then he came back to the Vikings. That's literally the only person in history, but he was good. Like, he had that ability.
What they say, Mike Vick.
Michael Vick did it too.
But
I'm
not
just saying it's
7
rare.
years, though.
I'm just saying it's very rare. Right.
But not 7 years.
No, not 7 years. And Michael Vick was a far better talent again than Colin Kaepernick. You know, Michael Vick was a number 1 overall pick, if I'm not memory serves me correctly. And yeah, you know, he still had a lot left to give as an athlete. Colin, done.
And the thing is, like, Colin has proven that he is more interested in this kind of social activism than he is in the game. Like, he's proven that already. And so, again, it's like, I don't think it's as much race. I don't think there's any racism at play. I just think it's, you know, I am not going to, like, I own a company here in Texas. Like, if I fired somebody because they were causing me more money on the job than they are in helping to bring in revenue, and at the same time that I fired them, they started posting on their social media while wearing the company uniform a bunch of social activist stuff, like, I would be like, okay, well, I mean, I don't agree with anything you're saying, but I fired you because you suck at your job.
Yep, it cost me money.
If you come to me and say, well, you know, Chad, I've been going to like trade school and I know this and I know that now. I want you to hire me back. I'm not going to bring back a disgruntled employee when I look at your social media and I see that for the past 7 years, you've been doing the same thing over and over and over again in terms of just being angry, causing problems everywhere you go. In my mind as a business owner, I'm thinking, okay, what's to stop you from doing the same stuff that you've been doing on social media for the past 7 years here and critiquing the way I run my company and publicizing the boss does this and that, and it goes against, this and that. Like what's to stop you from doing that if I were to hire you again? You know what I'm saying? And so in the same way, when it comes to Colin Kaepernick and a potential NFL team picking him up, I can imagine, and rightly so, the GM saying, well, what's to stop them? Like, you've already said that the NFL is a plantation. You already said that they are racist against black folks. You already had all this negative stuff to say about the NFL. So what's if I'm the, for example, the GM of the Rams, what's to stop you if I were to bring you onto the Rams from making these same kind of charges and accusations against us to where, during the course of a season, to where we can't even focus on winning games because we're focused, like we're constantly in the press room trying to answer for these claims that one of our team members are making. Like, it just doesn't make sense on any level. So.
And the NFL paid him.
Right.
Like, they paid him for the quote unquote racism that he experienced. So he don't really have any complaints. Like they paid you, they compensated you.
Right. And I think he's still getting paid too by the NFL. I think he's still getting paid.
I'll just be the cheerleader in this situation because I don't really know much about the current football stuff. So, no team.
You were a cheerleader?
All my life.
Yeah, I could tell those moves were a little bit too perfect. And you even did the wave at the end and everything. You got to watch out for those
Colin
cheerleaders.
Kaepernick.
High school for his baseball. The pitcher even had major league interest, but he bucked public pressure and followed his heart to the gridiron.
There were a lot more black people in football that I was like, I found some community here.
Do you still want to play football professionally?
Absolutely. I woke up this morning before our events, trained 5-6 days a week. I'm still up at 4:30. I go get my training in. That passion is still there, and the ability is still there.
He hasn't played professionally since the 2016-2017 season, when this single gesture sparked both solidarity and outrage.
Why did you choose that day and to protest in that way?
That's actually something we're going to dive deep into with the doc that's coming this fall. But as it relates to the book, people may look at that moment and be like, oh, you must have been this person all along. And it's like, no, there's growth that has to happen.
Will you continue to sit?
Yes.
Then Kaepernick couldn't get hired and even sued the NFL for collusion in a case that settled.
Are you talking to any teams?
We reach out to all 32 teams every year throughout the year because my biggest thing is just let me get on the field. If I'm not good enough, cut me. But give me the chance to show you what I can do.
In 2019, the NFL.
It's not give me the chance to show you what I can do. It's give me a chance to wreak havoc, and to invoke another PR nightmare where the social justice cause can be furthered on the one hand, and I can get wealthier on the other hand. That's what it is. Like, you want to get, you want to land an opportunity, a training opportunity with a certain team. You want to get cut, and then you want to capitalize on that by making it a PR nightmare for that team. That's what you want, because you want to continue to further this narrative that America is racist against black people. Like, that's all this is. You don't really want to play for an NFL team because I don't know. Let me stop.
I'll organized a workout for you.
Sorry, go ahead, Chuck.
No, I'll let you finish the clip. I had some stuff I wanted to say. I'll let you finish.
All right.
Go ahead.
Baseball, the pitcher, outrage.
To sit?
Yes.
Then Kaepernick couldn't get hired and even sued the NFL for collusion in a case that settled.
Are you talking to any teams?
We reach out to all 32 teams every year throughout the year because my biggest thing is just let me get on the field. If I'm not good enough, cut me, but give me the chance to show you what I can do.
In 2019, the NFL organized a workout for you in hopes of getting you hired. You chose not to go to their workout. You held your own workout. What do you say to people who argue that the NFL did give you
He wore a shirt that said Kunta Kinte, by the way,
Kinte.
at his little sidebar workout. But I'll get back to that later. I'm sure some of the panel would want to comment on that as well.
shot?
That's another great question that will be covered in the doc.
In 2020, what did it feel like for you
Say his name, George Floyd.
to see everyone almost wake up?
Another great question that will be covered later this year.
Colin, I got a lot of great questions.
I appreciate the
Not a perfect
thoughtfulness.
documentary.
I won't speak for Colin, but I think that in thinking about what impact looks like, it's so much bigger than changing one system or one league. What does it mean for all of us to be faced, as we invariably are, with really tough decisions about what it means to do good in the world? And how do we inspire one another to make different decisions when that time arises?
For their next chapters, Ewing is writing the next Black Panther comic.
I like real life superheroes and pretend superheroes.
Do you consider the man next to you a real life superhero?
The thing about superpowers is you got to keep them secret.
Part of the goal in telling the story is, no, take pride in your blackness, take pride in your culture. My hope is young people and readers walk away and they seize their power. When y'all are in that
Those kids don't want those books.
position, you have the opportunity to change things.
Kaepernick's story continues with his advocacy and trying to return to the NFL.
Colin, what is it like for you all these years later to be pushing and still not getting a yes?
Very similar to the messaging of the book is, I don't have control over all of these situations, but I control how I respond to it. I control how I prepare for it. I'm a believer that in doing that, good things will happen.
For CBS Mornings, Adriana Diaz, Chicago.
Get off my screen.
Right, get your ass out of here.
But he wore that. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Keisha.
I just Googled Colin Kaepernick and Eric Mann. Y'all know Eric Mann is like the modern Marxist trainer. And I'm finding a lot of articles where his name and Colin Kaepernick's name is coming up. But when I click on the article and I Control F, find his name in the article, it's not there. So I think that they've had some type of connection.
I'm sure they have.
Somehow, because this is weird. I mean, if you think about it, it's just kind of weird. You have this guy, who's a football player, all of a sudden he just has all this problem with America. I mean, it's kind of odd. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, stuff like that just doesn't seem to happen organically sometimes, but not really. I wouldn't be surprised if he admits in the interview that he started to get activated as an activist in high school, which is, like we said from the beginning, that is typical. Eric Mann himself says that they go after kids who are quote unquote marginalized kids. He's from California, right? Where is he from? Is he from California?
Yeah.
Connecticut. Just kidding.
Oh, okay. Oh,
No, he's from California.
But anyway, my point is,
He's from California.
Huh?
He's from California.
That's their
That's where
stomping ground.
his adopted parents. That's where they. But I think he was born in Wisconsin and he relocated to California, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I would really be interested to see what his Marxist training has been, and when did it start?
Yeah,
I think that would be interesting to.
I think she used the term, and because I gotta go soon, guys. She used this term about self-awareness. The broad sitting next to him said she was either impressed or amazed, amused with the fact that he had a sense of self-awareness at such a young age. And what she means by self-awareness is it's an old Marxist term Marx talked about it. He wrote about it. This whole thing called sort of consciousness raising. Chad, when you played one of your clips, maybe the one you tried to play tonight is the clip that I'm referring to, because I think you may have played it in the past, where it was showing King, or even when you described how King would strategically pick the churches and the venues where he would go speak, because he knew how to get the ear of the activists. And one of the clips that you play, I remember there was a young lady, and she was speaking, and she said, I never really thought about it. Like, I never really kind of saw myself like as a black person. I never really sort of thought about it that way before. But now it's like, yeah, like, right on, power to the people. But until I started to hear the yap, 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 I never thought about it before. But I guess it's true, right? And then the same clip, another guy says, at the time, the whole civil rights, social justice sort of thing was all anyone could talk about. It was like everywhere. It wasn't there before. And it was like, because it wasn't there, then, you sort of didn't notice it. And so to go back to Marx, it was sort of like this ongoing philosophical discussion and debate going on as to when does the proletariat come into being, right? If a tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, doesn't make a sound. This whole, everything from terms like capitalism, even concepts like an economic class, these are all contrivances. These are arbitrary. These are make believe. And Marx had this whole thing where the proletariat exists even before it becomes conscious as a class, before it becomes conscious of itself. And the job of the vanguard is to raise the consciousness of the proletariat so that they become aware of what they always were. And so, when you think about Colin Kaepernick or becoming self-aware, or when Dr. King was out proselytizing and getting people into this whole notion of blackness, of black identity, this is this age-old, century-and-a-half left-wing tactic of what's called consciousness raising, just to kind of, give it a more intellectual kind of sounding thing. But that's what it is. And again, goes back to Marx. He talked about it.
Not surprised.
Keisha, you got some last words?
This was fun, and this was like edutainment, and I had a great time. I think Colin Kaepernick is disgusting for what he said about his adoptive parents, and should be shamed.
Yeah. Man, when I was young, guys, I just real quick about I got my first tattoo when I was only 15 years old. And my mother, she was like, okay, like, man, whatever. When Chad, when you talked about, some of the smartest people, kind of, it's not to say that it's hopeless, because a lot of people who turned out okay kind of fell into that. I kind of raised my hand, like, I was sort of like one of those folks. But and I got a lot of tattoos and stuff in my teen years and my early 20s. But I always said, I didn't want to get tattoos in places where I couldn't cover them up with a long shirt, because I was always told, hey man, you have to be mindful of your future. If you want to go out and get a job one day, visible tattoos aren't acceptable in corporate America. But now all of a sudden, fast forward, we see necks and hands and face, and I'm looking at a lot of these rappers, and I'm saying to myself, man, what the hell is going? Because I remember hearing Mike Tyson say, because Mike Tyson has the tattoo on his, and he said that he went out and did that to himself. And you can probably go and find this clip somewhere where he's talking about this, where he says that he just wanted to put that on his face because at that time he didn't really love himself, and not sort of that kind of prideful, sinful sort of self-love, but he genuinely said he sort of had almost like this self-loathing, this hatred for himself. And putting that tattoo on his face was almost like almost like self-flagellation, like a punishment to his own person, because the face is such a personal thing. That's like, that's sort of like what it is, like sort of like what defines you. And so I'll be thinking sometimes, kind of, putting my little psychoanalytic hat on here. It's just like, I don't know if these people, these rappers, and a lot of these young folks, how do they really feel about themselves deep down inside for just kind of readiness and willingness to scar oneself in this manner? To me, it's not like simply a form of like self-expression. It's almost like mutilation in a way that's almost like a cry. I don't know, man. It's some kind of thing going on in the inside where it's like, I don't really, it's almost like a hatred for oneself. I don't know, man. That's kind of like a side note. But again, blackness, tattoos, hair, all this stuff, man. It's just like, how far does it go? How far will we end up going with this?
Right. Yeah. That's a great word. Blanche, I want to give you the last word.
Yeah, this was a great show. It was excellent. I'm going to echo Keisha and say that Colin Kaepernick is despicable. It's just a new low to use your parents. And the irony, somebody said it, I think Chicken Grease said, the irony that the first person that did Kaepernick wrong was his black dad.
That's right.
But it's just crazy that he doesn't talk about the parents that gave him up like the ones that actually raised him. And they actually raised him right because he turned out to be successful. So it's just crazy they don't get credit for what they did. But you know what, Chuck? I think that people may do that face thing to give themselves a reason not to like themselves. Like, it's kind of like you feel it, but you want to actually solidify it. So you say, let me mark my face up so I can have a reason, not to like my face. I'm thinking, I don't know.
Yeah, man. Like something I just been thinking about recently. I don't know. I haven't really fully formulated how I feel about it, but I think it's just something going on psychologically. Just, of course we know that the culture, we have problems, but Lil Wayne and all these they just something wrong with them. They just don't look, something is off about them. Not just, the spirit, no, the music is just getting so overtly wicked and satanic evil and all that. Yeah, but for you to just your face, this is me. I'm not doing that to my face. No, I'm not doing that. I don't understand. Like, why would you want to? It's just something personal about your face that you just shouldn't tattoo everything else. But this is what you present to the world. There's something about the whole culture of this face tattooing. It's something about it that I haven't really been able to wrap my mind around yet. That's all I'm saying.
That's
So
really interesting.
Yeah, it is very interesting. So we didn't get to get into the funny part. I was attacked once again. They like to come for me apparently, over one of my professions. I'm a man of many talents, and apparently that's a bad thing in the so-called black community. So we'll get into that next time. I think I might actually go live tomorrow or just whenever the panel is available. I love these guys. I love having them on. I think it always makes for a great discussion, great conversation. And it's not like I'm showing favoritism. I mean, literally with this program, I can only have up to 4 guests on here. So anyway, love you guys. Hope you all have a wonderful night. Don't forget to turn your clocks back. I mean, we do live in 2023, so I'm sure they're going to do them by itself, with the exception of your oven and your car. So anyway, y'all have a good night. God bless. Love y'all.
Bye.